Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Gaming Tonic. It's a podcast hosted by gamers for gamers, giving you the latest gaming news. Today, we're doing another episode in the series of the games we play on MMOs. I'm joined here by my friend,
Just
Just Vince.
Vince. What's up, guys? Good day, good day. I'm Just Vince. It's great to have you here. And also, we are joined by a very special guest this week who I personally am very excited to introduce. He is a mod of mine, a personal friend, hardcore gamer, father of two, awesome all-around dude, our boy, Grynth Live. Welcome to the show. It's awesome to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so
Pretty excited to talk about everything we're going after today, I guess.
yeah, most definitely. This is a show that I am personally incredibly excited to talk about. We're talking about one of my favorite topics, personally, one of my favorite genres, probably the game genre I spend the most time in. But to get started with, I want to talk to you a little bit about the content creation that you make, what you've been working on, why you got into content creation, what you usually spend your time streaming, that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about you. Pitch us, you and your channel, and what it is you've been doing, man.
All right, well, I guess it started forever ago when we first met, but
Yeah.
we struggled through the Xbox Smite days and kind of dabbled with streaming here and there using all kinds of different technology we had at the time, because I guess we were both console streaming at the time.
We were.
Which was rough. Just like straight console broadcasting.
Yeah.
And it was awful. But also Smite, so you know.
Yeah, good point.
And then just tried on and off doing stuff for a while, and then eventually I made a little bit of YouTube content with World of Warcraft when Mists of Pandaria was coming out. That didn't really last very long.
About how long ago was that? About 10 years now? Miss? Trying to think.
I really don't even know.
I feel like it's been about 10 years.
Because I got
8
into
to
the
10.
beta and I was making Windwalker Monk guides before Mists of Pandaria even came out. And
Crazy.
They were horrible when they first came out.
Amazing.
So still just more on and off at that point. It was less streaming at that point and more just trying to do recorded content. And then I just kind of streamed what I was doing on WoW for a while, and helping you where I could, because as soon as we were basically realized your potential of streaming and everything, I was just pretty much trying to figure out everything I could do to help with your side of things, which was we did the Apex YouTube for a while. Which
we did.
Pretty good.
It was pretty good. Fun videos.
And that
there.
Was
you had a YouTube?
Your stream was we did.
Gosh, when Apex first launched, I
gotta dig this relic up, dude.
So this would have been 2 years ago now. There's a bunch of clips of like early Apex back when I was like actually good enough to keep up with the really good players. Of just like clips of my games and stuff like that.
Top 10 total kills lifeline player.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was nuts.
For the first like month and a half or so, like I was like going back and forth on the leaderboards with a few other PC players on Lifeline, because that was the main that I stuck with. Yep. So yeah, he was taking all the clips himself, like making YouTube videos of just like montages of whatever stuff I was going on. Usually we did like a game of the week, and then we would have like a clip thing, like where it was just like a montage of all the cool stuff that happened, and he was doing all that.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then his stream was where I first got into the graphic stuff, which I mean, none of the stuff I do on his is like, in my opinion, is anything to write home about. He very much appreciates what I do.
Yeah.
But to me, this was my base. Like his stream was where I first started learning how to do any of it.
Yeah, so
it's been getting better. But
yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, that's also cool. Aside from like the gaming Tonic overlays, which Joker actually did himself, so mad props to him. Grynth Live has done let's see here, all my emotes. I think I'm trying to think. Is there any that you didn't do?
I mean, the Erica drawing. I didn't do the art for it. I just made it into.
Made it into the emote. Yeah.
That drawing was done by one of our coworkers or boss or somebody?
Yeah, one of coworkers / friend / boss, all of the above. It's another human being. They do things, they help. Exactly. They're awesome. We appreciate you, Laura. She's great.
An individual.
Yeah. It's like I'm not good at the drawing side of it, but I've been getting into the pixel art stuff, which is awesome. Like the gaming Tonic emote that everybody uses. That was my real first pixel art thing that I've made. Is that emote. So
it's gosh darn beautiful.
It is.
Love the emote.
It is. Joker carved it into a pumpkin. Check out his YouTube video if you haven't already. But so what are you working on right now as far as content creation, streaming wise? What is it that you've been doing lately?
So with the pre-patch coming out in WoW, would
Mhm.
forever ago. The pre-patch is what
Yeah.
we call it. I knew with the group of friends that I had and my guild in WoW that I could 100% make affiliate. And so I started streaming every day, just going hard. When with pretty much you and the community you built and all of our buddies from Discord and my guild combined, to hit the affiliate. I got affiliate what, like 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Probably 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Pretty recently. Yeah.
And
Founder.
and then I've just been streaming WoW. Um, really been looking for other stuff to do lately, but it's also at the same time it's it's difficult to find something that'll actually work for me, like streaming wise. And then also lately, the times that I've been choosing to stream have been kind of awful because of maintenance, preparing for the actual pre-patch event, which comes out on Tuesday, and in preparation for the expansion coming later this month.
Nice. So
But just been doing raids, doing keystones, like battlegrounds, and gold farming is pretty much all I've been streaming the
awesome.
past 2-3 weeks.
So pretty much just a lot of World of Warcraft content. Excited for the new expansion that's coming up. I know I'm excited for the new expansion that's coming up. I am not quiet about the fact that I thoroughly love World of Warcraft. As much as I hate World of Warcraft sometimes, it's always gonna be home for me, you know. So what about you, Joker? What do you been working on lately?
Okay, last week I did a lot of just chatting stuff. Sat around, watched a whole lot of YouTube videos, did some React Andy. I tiered some candy on Friday. That was awesome. I got a really awesome stomach ache from that. Yeah.
Incredible. What got first, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, like, spoiler alert, are you okay sharing it? What got last, if you'd rather say that?
Almond Joys and Twizzlers.
Got last?
Yeah, they were Pepega.
That's because they're terrible. So like
They're awful, yeah.
really the worst. I mean,
They're
wait, do you
terrible.
like Almond Joy? Grynth? Do you like Almond Joy?
I don't.
Perfect.
It just reminds me of the boys. So
All right, we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, most definitely. Man, that's awesome. Be sure to check out Joker's candy tier list YouTube video if you haven't already.
Coming out next Sunday.
Awesome. So, for me personally, I've been working on a lot of Guild Wars still. I did get to do an Outlast stream for Halloween. We haven't gotten to finish our playthrough of Outlast 2 yet, but we were having a really good time. Had a lot of people show up for a fun time with that. It was me and my wife Erica. We were having a lot of fun playing Outlast and screaming, and like she hit me a couple of times. It was okay. I'm still all right. But yeah, it's been mostly Guild Wars 2 still, and it's been incredibly fun, and the community over there has been absolutely awesome. And it has been a long time since I have loaded up World of Warcraft with the intent to do something and immediately stopped playing World of Warcraft to go do something else I would rather do.
Yeah.
And like, aside from the fact that there isn't much to do in World of Warcraft, usually when I get the itch and I have something that I'm intent on doing, like I go and I'll play World of Warcraft for a few days at least, even if there's nothing to like new interesting content in the game. Like I will at least like hop on there for a bit and just like, you know, scratch the itch, get my fix of World of Warcraft, and then go back to whatever it is else I want to play. And Guild Wars 2 has been an absolutely like incredible game, and there's so much for me to do because I haven't played it before. It's been out since 2012. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as one of the MMORPGs that we're talking about today. But like, and there is essentially 8 years of content for me to catch up on that I never got to experience before. And it's been absolutely incredible, like getting immersed in the lore and like the classes that I'm playing in the new world. And I haven't unlocked like mounts or anything like that yet. So there's a lot of stuff for me still to do, but I have been thoroughly enjoying having something new and fresh to do besides just, you know, wait for a World of Warcraft expansion to come out. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's
a
pretty
good
much been my
feeling
week.
too. When you get into a new game and you just get to go through that immersion all over again, and it's something you actually enjoy. It's a really cool feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been absolutely incredible. So, you want to tell us what we're working on this week, Joker?
Yes, sir. This week, we are going to be discussing MMOs, starting
Excellent.
with the history of these MMOs, which will be taken over by Mr. Vince.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the first game?
Now, specifically, we're talking about MMORPGs. Just want to clear that up real quick.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. Some people came up and they were like, well, what about Grand Theft Auto Online? Stuff like that. I'm like, okay, technically, there's a lot of people playing that online, true, but we're looking specifically at the MMORPG genre. So you'll know a little bit more about like exactly the type that we're talking about as we delve into the history a little bit here. So discussing the history of MMORPGs specifically, this is, I mean, again, I cannot stress enough, this is my favorite genre to play. I love MMORPGs. I spend more time playing these than any other game. This is probably the longest I've played any genre in my entire life. And getting to really dig in and learn about the history about some of these games that came out before I was even like had a controller in my hands, essentially, before I could talk, you know, like, and like be coherent and understand video games at all. Like it was really interesting for me to kind of go back and see this is where these games that I love came from. So we're starting out with Ultima Online, which is one that I actually made a Reddit post asking people about like what MMO they remember the most fondly, because I was curious to get some other opinions from like other MMORPG veterans. If you want to look at the post, I think it's still up on the MMORPG Reddit from like 2 or 3 days ago. But Ultima Online is one that like only got a couple of mentions in the list, but like everybody was like, you know, it was one that I played. And it came out September 24th, 1997. So I was 3 years old at the time. How old were you born yet, Joker?
I wasn't even a thought. So
Joker was not even born yet. And Grynth, where were you at?
5.
5? Man.
5.
So I'm guessing you weren't playing Ultima Online at the age of 5.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
he might have been.
Who knows? We actually looked up a little bit of gameplay for it. I remember going over the video with you guys, and like it had like some, I would say close to Diablo 1 graphics, if you're familiar with those. Very pixely, like I would say 2.5D kind of. Like essentially you had like a almost 3D character model that would move around on kind of a 3D plane, but all the artwork was 2D and stuff like that. So it was like what's up?
I thought that was kind of cool though. I like that. That like 2D style on the environment kind of gave it like this like artistic look for an old game. I think that was the best move they could have made in that time, you know?
Yeah.
Would have looked a whole lot worse if it was 3D in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really before 3D games started to like
could even do that.
Hit their stride. Yeah. I mean, it very much had like a almost like early Legend of Zelda games type feel to it, I'd say.
Yeah, totally.
So it had a lot of unique professions, and this was one of the most interesting things about this game, I think, for me, Ultima Online, was that you could be a beggar if you wanted to as a profession.
Yeah, true.
You could do begging, you could do forensics, you could do herding. Does any of that sound interesting to you, Grynth?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that something you would want to do?
The herdsman? Yeah, I'll be the herdsman.
Perfect. There we go.
I've always wanted to go into the dream fantasy land and just herd.
And I mean, the list of professions was way too long to list them all here. It's massive. If you guys want to look it up yourself, just like Google search Ultima Online professions, you'll see there was a ton of stuff that you could do. And I think that a lot of the influence was like early Dungeons and Dragons games, where you could kind of like exactly tailor your character however you wanted to. A lot of like that character agency and freedom of choice, even though it was stuff that probably nobody wanted to do in video games at this time. People were like, I can do it, so that's awesome. You know, like even if it's not something you want to do, it's cool to have the choice. So the core design revolved around freedom of choice and being able to play your own way. So you could act like a villain if you wanted to, but there were punishment systems in place. So, I mean, I think that's kind of progressive, honestly.
Yeah,
like
that's
speaking for a game of this time,
Yeah.
you know. Like I swear that there's still games today who can't figure out player versus player stuff, you know. So for them to have thought that out back in 1997 and like implemented a punishment system and things like that to kind of keep people in line, but also give you the opportunity to be like, hey, I'm going to go be a dick to these people if I want to, you know, like I think that appealed to a lot of people. And it was the first MMORPG to reach 100,000 players, which is no small feat.
Yeah, in 1997, not bad.
Yeah, before video games really like boomed the way that they did and like blew up, and before the age of Call of Duty where like everybody's a gamer nowadays and it's more mainstream. I mean this was kind of a time, I'm pretty sure, where people still thought Dungeons and Dragons was evil. So like you know, it was back in the day a little bit. Moving on to the next one though, we're talking about EverQuest. And did either of you two play EverQuest?
I did not.
I didn't either. Yeah.
Neither of you. I did play EverQuest. EverQuest came out March 16th, 1999, and it had incredibly blocky graphics, but it was the first like 3D MMO to see some real commercial success. And most people attribute this game to being kind of the birthplace for a lot of the systems we see in MMOs today. Like having the like cast bar the way that you did, the 3D graphics, the movement, like the instanced zones and all that stuff, like all kind of started there, like in that kind of an MMO setting. And this was my first MMORPG. I started playing it when I was 5 years old. And I use the term playing very loosely because this was a very difficult game to get into. It was not like Mario where you load up you load up Mario and you run through the levels and you fall and die a bunch of times because you're 5. At least I was at the time. But like, essentially, my dad like basically sat me on his lap and we created a character together. And the character I created was a Froglock. I can't remember the class for the life of me. I think it was a Dark Knight, I believe. Somebody can correct me if that's not an EverQuest class, and it is what it is. But like, I'm pretty sure it was some kind of a Dark Knight, essentially, like Shadow Knight. Shadow Knight's probably what it was called. I'm 90% sure that's the name.
As somebody that's never played EverQuest before, what exactly is a Froglock?
So, let me tell you, okay? And I picked this character because, again, I was 5, and essentially, it's a frog, okay? But like not like a bullfrog, like a skinny kind of frog, you know? And it walks on 2 legs, but it's hunched forward, okay? And like it's pretty much like the closest you can get to having a frog that's somewhat human-like and able to hold weapons. Think
is
like
it a warlock?
No, Froglock is like, that's just the name of it. It has nothing to do with
race?
That's the name of the race. It has nothing to do with like demonic stuff or anything like that. That was the race.
Shadow Knight was correct, by the way.
It was Shadow Knight. Perfect. Thank you.
Shadow Knight is there. Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
Look at my memory pumping hard. Okay. And it's basically like somewhere between a frog and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you could somehow combine those two together, okay, that's what you're looking at. All right. Like,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So essentially a frog humanoid, and me and my 5-year-old brain, I was like, that one's a frog. I'm gonna be that one. Awesome.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So
I would have done the same thing.
And then Shadow Knight, I mean, edgy, like dark magic, combat, like, I mean, that is like 5-year-old brain to the max, you know? Choose whatever option is edgy and then whatever is a weird animal that you can pick. Okay. And
I would still pick it.
So yeah, that's when I played EverQuest. And this is the first game on our list that I actually got to experience. And it's still getting expansions today. Came out in 1999. Claws of Vishan beta, if I'm pronouncing that correct. Pre-orders start October 21st, and the beta starts October 21st. So, I mean, for a game to have that kind of longevity is kind of, I mean, I think this is the only one, honestly. Ultima Online might still be kicking, but still getting regular content updates and expansions, like enough people playing it to warrant releasing expansions for this game. I mean, that's no small feat.
Are you ready to get back into EverQuest?
Absolutely not. I will never touch that game again. It's so clunky, and like I love it because it's where I started, you know. But man, like incredibly blocky graphics, slow gameplay. Every fight, like after the fight, you're sitting down, regenerating your health and mana for like 3 minutes or more, depending on what level you are. Because it's just
sounds like a good time, man.
Yeah, it's so slow.
Just eating and drinking with the boys.
Yeah, exactly. And like one of the things that people list that they miss about this game actually is like being able to like start a fight and then go get a drink, you know, or start a fight, go take their dog for a walk.
with that health regen and stuff, like that sounds like a good time to just go on my phone for a moment and browse Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Nice little break in between.
Yeah. And the main thing about EverQuest was this one kind of took the world by storm, you know, being the first like 3D MMO that really like hit mainstream for the first time in a big way. And it was massively addicting. I mean, this was really some of the like first areas where we saw video game addiction starting to pop up in a big way. A GameSpot article actually, they gave EverQuest Game of the Year in 1999, and in the article about like all of their Game of the Year awards, like best and worst games of the year, basically that they would do in their articles. And I quote, it says, "Following EverQuest's release in March, the whole gaming industry effectively ground to a halt. At least one prominent game developer blamed EverQuest for product delays, and for several weeks, GameSpot's editors were spending more time exploring Norath than they were doing their jobs." Norath being the world that EverQuest is set in.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, companies were legit delaying their game because their workers were playing EverQuest instead.
Sounds like an MMO to me.
Yeah.
They were enjoying their product, man.
Yeah, this is where it started, and that kind of like drive to play the game has persisted in all of the good MMOs, in my opinion, to this day.
Exactly. That still happens. A new expansion comes out, people are booking time off work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But I think it's so interesting to see something on this level where like you talk about games like Cyberpunk, they got delayed again, and then because of that, like Path of Exile, I think it was, pushed back one of their updates for their game a couple of weeks to not release at the same time as Cyberpunk because they know everybody's going to be playing that game. And it's not that type of a situation. It's a situation where legit 4 months people are investing all of their time in this MMORPG. you know? And this is
Yeah.
kind of where it started. Moving on to the next one, though, we're talking about RuneScape. And I know this is a game that has a lot of, love from a lot of people. It definitely is deep-seated in a lot of people's hearts, MMORPG veterans. Pretty much everyone that I know either got their start playing EverQuest, RuneScape, or World of Warcraft. Were the big three. Everyone in my age group, at least. And, like, to this day, RuneScape is still massive. Released January 4th, 2001. It was released as a beta version on January 4th, 2001, and originally... and it, like, the developers actually originally operated out of their parents' house in Nottingham. So, like, this is a game that came from very humble beginnings.
Yeah, that's some Apple level startup right there.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs garage type stuff.
And I mean, you look at game devs now where, people are putting out indie games with a couple of man teams. These people try to release an MMORPG game. RuneScape not being like the full like 3D environments and graphics, it's like an isometric top-down view, but like still an incredibly deep MMORPG. And they had to support all the servers and all that stuff, and that is where they started. And that's
dope.
An incredible legacy, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In 2018, which is more recent, but they reported that RuneScape had generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue since its original launch.
So and it started in their developer's parents' house in Nottingham.
Started from the bottom, now we're here. Yeah,
let's go, boys.
Yeah. That's massive. Also received the role-playing game award. Is that game of the year, Joker, on that one?
It didn't say, because I was the one that found that little thing. It didn't. It just, that's literally all. It was called role-playing game award at Independent Game Developers Association in 2018.
Awesome.
There was no like game of the year. I assume game of the year probably would have been taken from more than one genre.
Yeah,
but
most definitely.
Still, out of RPGs, it won in 2018. So
wow. So
that's that like how close to 2020 that is for a game that came out in 2001. That's an outstanding achievement.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at 2018. I mean, that was 2 years ago now, but even still, that's 17 games after the game's genesis. 17 years after it started, and it's still pumping that hard, still winning awards, still generating revenue on a regular basis, and leaving behind an incredible legacy. I mean, one of the more relaxed MMO options, I believe, like a lot of the draw to it was that you could just like hop in and AFK skill and sort of like things like that, and it was very chill. Personally, I didn't get to experience a lot of the RuneScape hype. Did either of you play RuneScape during its like, I guess, prime, you want to say? I would say between its launch and like maybe 2012, would say I would.
Yeah, not really. I've dabbled in it from time to time, and actually I think that was my first MMORPG that I ever laid hands on. I was probably about 5'2", but yeah, I never experienced it like full-fledged playing every day type way.
So the reason that I tell people that I didn't play RuneScape is that I had already been playing World of Warcraft, and that is true, but that's not the reason why I stopped playing RuneScape, because I tried RuneScape once. I tried RuneScape one time. I was, I think, 11 years old, so it would have been in 2005 when I tried RuneScape, because my friends were like, oh, it's free, you should try it. I know you play World of Warcraft, but hey, give this a go anyways. So I load up RuneScape. I'm running around, I'm doing my quests, I do the intro tutorial, whatever it is, and I run into this field, and there's a cow in the field. And in World of Warcraft, when you run up and there's a critter, a cow, whatever, something that's like not combative, like it's there and you can kill it, but it dies in one hit. And I swing at the cow, okay, because I'm expecting it to die in one hit, and the cow is 3 levels higher than me, and I didn't realize that because I was very bad. And the cow turns around and it kicks my teeth in, and I died. And I died to a cow in the starting area of RuneScape in 2005 when I was 11, and I said, this game is terrible and I'm never coming back. And I have played RuneScape 2 times since then, and it was in the last year. I did not play RuneScape again since that day.
Take notes, game developers. You make your cows stronger than the player, you're gonna lose some of your player base.
Yeah.
You're gonna swear off your game for the rest of their life.
Is there any deep-seated issues that came from that, like still to this day?
Issues with
do you not eat beef?
No,
or do you only
I
eat beef?
specifically eat hamburgers over other meat. Very true.
Do you get anxious when you drive past a pasture full of cows? You're just like,
yeah, I mean, occasionally, but it's more because my wife screams moo in the seat next to me than anything else. But like,
okay.
still, yeah,
Moo.
yeah, it does scare me a little bit. But That was my experience with RuneScape, and like I recognize that this is an incredible game that has been such a huge part of the MMORPG genre and really gave people a lot of their introductions into this style of game, and being able to be online with people and being so accessible for so many people as long as you don't try to fight cows and things like that. Like were excellent for the time that this released at, and I think that this is really to attribute a lot of people's interest in MMO games, especially being that it was free to play.
Yeah. Free to play never hurts that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously, honorable mention for a couple of games here: Final Fantasy XI, Dark Age of Camelot, Maple Story. They all released between 2001 and 2002. Unfortunately, we had to kind of cherry pick which ones we were going to include for the sake of time, because all three of the people here are people who love MMORPG games. So if we were to go in depth about every single MMORPG that has released over the last 20 years, like we want to, we would be here for probably around 4 or 5 hours. We're trying not to do that today. Because we value your time. But honorable mention to those games, once again, Final Fantasy XI, Dark Age of Camelot, Maple Story, all released between 2001 and 2002. Incredible games in their own rights. I didn't get to play Dark Age of Camelot or Final Fantasy XIV. I did play a little bit of Maple Story. Did either of you two play these games at all? At any point?
I one of the only games I've ever been banned from is Maple Story.
How did you get
Is
banned?
your filthy language?
I don't know. It could have very well been my filthy language. I don't remember how I got banned.
Somebody a butthead.
I could have. I
were
think
just like,
I dropped an F-bomb and it's Maple
Oh,
Story,
gosh.
so they were like,
I can't
can't be
you've
doing
done
that. Yeah, I know. It was pretty
I was gonna
vulgar
say,
of me.
I mean, early to mid 2000s, you could come in hot with a dummy idiot, just drop it on somebody. I
Oh.
mean, it gets dicey out there. So
That was the worst thing I could think of. It must have been the F-bomb. That I don't know. I didn't do anything else.
And that was enough.
Anyways.
Maple Story devs were like, "Nope, you're out of here." So,
Yeah, dude.
Joker clearly has not played more Maple Story. This next one I'm a little excited to talk about, and it's one that I didn't get to experience. And the more that we talk about it, I think the more that we wish it existed today in a better capacity. Star Wars Galaxies came out June 25th, 2003. And this is one that actually I got into some of the most in-depth people with on Reddit during like the question that I posed and all that stuff. Like I got so much fun information from people on this. But Star Wars Galaxies, June 25th, 2003, had non-combat classes like Trader, Entertainer, Politician. So kind of taking inspiration a little bit from Ultima Online, having having things that you could do besides just the main combat things that were, unique for MMORPGs in the Star Wars universe specifically. So when we're talking about like Entertainer, like you could, and I mean, we'll get into like being able to city build and all that stuff a little bit later in the history too, but like you could build a cantina in a town. You could play music in the cantina, you could dance in the cantina, and like you could make money doing all of that stuff. And you would actually like help people's mental stress levels, I think, in the game, like mental duress or stress or whatever it was called, like whatever that metric was in the game. And you could like help people with that by being an entertainer, and you would get paid for it.
Right on, dude.
Like absolutely
I love
incredible
that.
idea. So
Yeah.
like players could build houses, cantinas, guild halls, city halls, and then when you grouped them all together, you could essentially make an entire city. When you like had everybody lumping their buildings together in one place.
And then as a politician, you were able to actually be a mayor for that city, right? Once you built it up enough.
Yes,
Yeah, dude.
Once your city got built up enough, players held elections for mayor, and then re-elections were held every 3 weeks. So like you could go in and you could campaign
Oh, wow.
and say, I want to be the mayor of this city, and here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm improving, and here are my resources and what I've done so far. And you could campaign to be the new mayor of the city. In your cities.
Based on recent times, I would not want to do that every 3 weeks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, no joke.
Imagine the
Stressful.
metagaming that goes
Yeah.
into that.
That's crazy.
You're probably campaigning more like out of game than in game. You know what I mean? Like
On forums, on
Yeah,
some
you're on forums.
website in the back of the
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, or like
That's awesome,
on your
though.
alt accounts, you're like helping people out so that they'll vote for you and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny.
bribes. Oh,
all of it. All of it, yes.
I bet you could bribe. That would be very Star Wars, like
yeah.
that right on theme with Star Wars.
Yeah. And I mean, hey,
The Empire deals.
Yeah, man.
somebody else a competitor, go start blowing up their stuff, take them out, go do some combat,
Why-
steal their goods,
you
steal
can't
their
do yourself.
resources.
Bounty hunters do exist in Star Wars.
Yeah,
so
you would have to get a bounty hunter on your side.
hire a hit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely incredible. And
Permadeath
then
on your character.
also, as cities grew, players could add vehicle repair garages, shuttle ports, cloning facilities, hospitals, cantinas, and gardens. So like as your city grew, you got access to more things that you could add in there, and your cities would continue to grow and flourish and be kind of like this central hub where people could come get their ship repaired, or they could come get a drink, sit down for some entertainment, work on a garden, like whatever it is that you want to do. And there was a ton of freedom with your options. If your city got big enough, you would also show up on the intergalactic maps. If y'all have seen Star Wars, like I'm a like average Star Wars fan. I've seen the movies. I don't care that much. I just watch them because I enjoy them. I'm not going to fight people about which ones were best. I don't care. I just watch good movies or average movies. But like when they pull up this, like the intergalactic map on the little like sphere that they set in the center, and then like a hologram pops up and you can kind of like see the map of like all of space and all the planets and everything like that. Like pretty much if your city got big enough, you would show up on that map as a city alongside of the cities in your Star Wars movies and books or other games, like whatever it was that you read. Like
Yeah.
people would see your civilization there and you could kind of leave your mark. And that is probably the most incredible aspect of this to me, because so many games, they let you do some player housing stuff. They let you have guild halls. They'll let you do some stuff to customize. But I haven't seen any game yet to this day, and it might just be because I haven't played them yet and there's new ones coming, but like where there's new ones that are already out, but I have not seen any game that does that on this scale. If in World of Warcraft I could build up my own city like a little bit outside of Ironforge, that if it got big enough eventually would show up on the map and the name of my city would be on the map, I mean that would be absolutely mind-blowing to me.
It would be. That would be crazy. Yeah, man. This game just sounds like one of those I feel like I really
ahead of its time. These are features that people ask for today.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed out on this one. I never got the chance to play it, but it sounds so fun. Sounds like it had a really like alive world.
Yeah, exactly. And it featured player-controlled starships. So you could fly your own ship and have a crew run around with you and do all that stuff. There was ground and space combat both. Okay, so you could like fly around and dogfight other people in space if you wanted to, and then had a completely player-run economy outside of like vendors, I imagine. But like I would say the majority of this game's economy was all player-run and based on like the facilities you were providing and the cities you were building up and the trading and smuggling and all that stuff was all happening inside of the game.
Yeah, that alone is really awesome. There's not a whole lot of games that do that very successfully anymore.
Well, and I mean, who's to say that it did it successful? Player-run economy can be very awesome, but it can also be very toxic.
I guess this game did get shut down, so
yeah,
it had its flaws, I suppose.
Yeah, having not experienced it, I mean, this is a game that for me is, I mean, like the closest thing that I can equate this to is like movies that came out before my time that I can't appreciate the same way because they came out before my time, and I look at it now and it's like I see the graphics and I see like all of the special effects and I see the bad acting and the bad makeup and all that stuff, and I'm like, I can't appreciate this movie the same as somebody else who got to witness it during their day. And like I can look at videos of this, but I have no understanding of what it was like to actually walk around in that world and be my profession and be able to experience what it was like to be in Star Wars on that level. And I'm like a little bit sad that I won't get that opportunity,
Yeah,
and
I feel very similar to that. It hurts.
Yeah.
And I love Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so this one like in particular strikes a chord with me.
Yeah. And like I know that we're hyping this up really big, but like a lot of what people said in the Reddit post that I like keep referencing, because that was like kind of one of the resources I used to try to get like opinions from people who liked games that came out that I didn't get to play, was they were saying that it launched with a lot of bugs and a lot of issues, which I mean, anything that is releasing on this scale, I imagine would have a ton of bugs.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine on the technology that we had in 2003, and then on the technology for probably like 4 to 6 years leading up to that, however long it took them to develop this game, whatever technology that was during that time, okay, where people were just starting to even have cell phones, all right? Like, like being able to release a game of that scope and that scale had to have been a massive undertaking, and I would expect it to launch with some pretty major bugs,
So did the bugs persist? Did anyone mention anything like that, or like was it eventually cleaned up?
I think it's kind of a case where this game was unfortunate enough to release like just the year before World of Warcraft. So by the time any bugs were fixed, realistically, the juggernaut that is Blizzard, and that was Blizzard at the time and continues to be today, released World of Warcraft to an audience that was hungry for more of that universe. And I think that whether or not the bugs were fixed, a lot of the people that were involved in enjoying this game, that were frustrated with it for as much time as they were and were dealing with it because they loved the game and it was all that was available to them for what they were looking for. World of Warcraft comes out from a company like Blizzard. They're like, let's go try this. And I mean, this is kind of like segueing us into our next game, which is World of Warcraft that released November 23rd, 2004. But one thing that Blizzard kind of has always been known for, not so much in the past few years, but like even more than most companies in the past few years, is their commitment to quality. So you take a game like Star Wars Galaxies that is incredible in concept, but a mess, a buggy mess, okay? And then you take a game like World of Warcraft at launch for the time that it was, when there was nothing else on that scale that was as clean, as polished, you know, as well put together as World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to draw people back in when you're taking a juggernaut like World of Warcraft and saying, hey, come back to Star Wars Galaxies. We fixed the bugs this time, we promise, you know?
Dude. Well, let it be known that Blizzard unofficially killed Star Wars Galaxies. So if you're ever sitting there wondering why you never got to play that game or wishing you could play that game, blame Blizzard. Write them about it. Or try World of Warcraft.
or even better yet, blame Activision, because now Blizzard is associated with Activision.
Yeah,
so it's their
dude.
fault. Even though they weren't merged in 2003, blame Activision because they're terrible.
They did it.
We hate them. So it was considered more new player friendly than other options. We're speaking about World of Warcraft now specifically, because oh, sorry, excuse me, I got to cough real quick. Sorry about that.
I'll cut it out.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, wonderful editor, Joker. But looking at this game specifically, it was more new player friendly than other options. You didn't have as much downtime in between combat, you know, talking about EverQuest specifically, where even early on, you'd be looking at like sitting down and regenning your health and mana for anywhere from like 2 to 4 minutes, depending on what level you are, sometimes even more than that, if like you just recovered from a death or something like that. And not to mention in EverQuest, you lost XP when you died.
Oh,
you know?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely insane. How much easier this was in comparison to a game like EverQuest, which I would say EverQuest was its main competitor at the time, outside of maybe Warhammer Online, which we didn't mention, but also an honorable mention to that game. I know, like, World of Warcraft did take a lot of influence from that game as well, but it was, and I would say still is, the most successful MMORPG ever, World of Warcraft, you know? I mean,
That stands today.
We talk about how EverQuest is still releasing expansions now, but I mean, World of Warcraft is also releasing expansions now and is still firing on all cylinders, like millions of players still subscribed, just as popular as ever and growing in popularity, honestly, with the most recent changes that they've made. It's a game that continues to impress me with both its ingenuity and its ability to make things that you are familiar with still feel fresh. And I think that World of Warcraft does that better than any other MMORPG that I have ever played. And I think one of the major things that attributed to its success was that it was, first of all, coming from a company like Blizzard, you know, that already had Diablo, already had Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, had StarCraft, you know, a company that was loved by many, creating an MMORPG in a franchise that was already recognizable by many people, you know? Because so many people loved Warcraft 3. They had never seen a story, a narrative told like that in an RTS game. It really like pushed the entire genre forward, the way that they did the narration and the storytelling in Warcraft 3, and really made you care about a lot of the characters, when before that it had been all about just micromanagement and like the building up your armies and fighting other people. And Warcraft 3 really pushed the envelope and made you care about the people you were controlling, which was very revolutionary for the genre. And so for a game like World of Warcraft to come out at the time that it did, when everybody was so hungry to know more about that story and to be a part of that world that was Warcraft, you know?
Yeah, and then they threw you in your own character is the essentially like the protagonist, I guess, and you're living in that world that they had already created, that you've gained the love of the lore for, and now they're pushing the story forward with you taking the spot as the champion, the one that'll save everyone. Like, it's cool, man. It's a it's a really awesome game.
And I mean, you get to run around in the environments that you played through in Warcraft 3. If you played the real-time strategy game that was Warcraft 3, you get to meet the characters that you met in Warcraft 3 and sometimes played as, you know? And in some cases in later expansions like Wrath of the Lich King, because the Warcraft 3 story arc was largely based around Arthas and his journey and everything like that. And you got to continue that in World of Warcraft in the Wrath of the Lich King, which was the game's second expansion. But still, like, the reason it has seen the success that it has seen is because of how much, I guess, it has paid tribute to what came before.
Yeah.
And how much love the fans have for this story and these characters and this world, and how well built it was and how well polished it was, that pretty much every game that came after World of Warcraft, I would say, I mean, even just talking about the user interface alone, you know, like at its time, it was revolutionary. I mean, it was the most polished. Every MMORPG that has come after this, in some way or another, you look at it and you're like, that does look kind of like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and you'll keep saying that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Enemy frames.
Yeah, it's so similar, you know. And we're what's up? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, from a marketing standpoint, I feel like they had the head start from the very beginning, just because they already laid that foundation too, because of Warcraft. And I unless I guess Star Wars could have the same excuse, but not. They, like you said, they actually ended up releasing a polished game.
Yeah.
Based off of something that people had already grown a love for, and I think that just kicked it off a little head. A lot of these games that we've talked about, they kind of just, it was like a standalone thing. They just popped up.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at World of Warcraft, and I mean, I consider it to be kind of a perfect storm. It came in at the right time, you know, at really the genesis of online gaming in general, you know? Like in the first real like start of being so connected and people having access to computers and having access to fast enough internet to play in a serious way, and like really like being as polished as it was in comparison to something like Star Wars, being more new player friendly than EverQuest, having it be a little bit more like fast and snappy and action oriented than something like RuneScape, you know, and like it was firing on all cylinders. And then on top of that, you have all of the lore behind it to back it up from the Warcraft universe and the pedigree of Blizzard as a company. And you take all of these things and you put them together, and you're left with the beauty that was World of Warcraft in the year that it came out, 2004. And
yeah, dude. Yes.
You look at something like that, and it's something that I don't know that we will ever see happen again in our lifetime, just because of how much people take for granted the connectivity that we have today. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how incredible it was to like go out and join a guild and make friends with like random strangers, you know, people who like I like spent most of my day with for years.
Totally, dude. I was gonna mention that too. Like, I feel like when I first started playing WoW, and it was before we were as interconnected as we are today, you know, and I feel like it just had this different like social vibe to it. Like,
yeah,
you felt like a closer type of bond with those people, those strangers that you're playing online with. There was something really unique about that I still haven't really like experienced with any other game.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you start playing World of Warcraft? Just so I know. Which expansion? We can start there.
What year did Cataclysm come out? It was Cataclysm.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know.
It was probably like mid Cataclysm.
It was like December 2010.
Okay, so I was like 10 years old.
Oh, so that means
God dang. What? I was in my first year of college when that came out.
I'm only 20, man. We go over this every time we have a guest on. They're like
Joker's a baby.
I remember when Cataclysm came out. I was at one of my new friends from college. He lived in some on-campus apartments. I was living in dorms. I took my laptop over to his place. We went to GameStop and waited in line and saw the weirdest people you could possibly imagine also in line to get World of Warcraft. And we got it, and we came home and played. And I had a math final at 8 in the morning. I did not sleep. I ran across campus in the snow to get my calculator and all my stuff, and then go and took my final, which I got an A on.
It's WoW time, baby.
And then went back to grinding WoW.
Hell yeah, dude. You did it. That's the dream right there.
Gosh, to our live viewers, I am so sorry. My cat just like jumped on top of my like desk and kicked stuff. So if things are looking a little strange right now, that's what's going on here. I'm trying to like figure out the cam situation right now real quick.
My camera's the only one
Hopefully.
that moves.
It's all right.
Yeah, Jacob's camera is the only one that moves. So I am sorry for the delay on that. But
So
Oh.
while you're working on it, I'll ask Grynth, do you what's your favorite thing about WoW? Like what is so notable about it for you? Like what do you think marks it in our history list here?
See, that I don't really know. It's just like I feel like all the it was
Kind
the
of an
base
opinion.
for me.
Yeah.
So like all of the features to me seem like the things that just should be there. So nothing like stands out completely, but like I was saying, when it was how it felt to find a guild and like spend that much time with that group of people, I never found that in any other MMO that I've tried
Yeah,
at
totally.
all.
I feel the
So
same way.
it's like the social aspect of WoW is it feels like miles ahead of literally everything else. Like, and then I'm sure that all the Guild Wars people in here are gonna fight me on this at all. If Vince was not streaming, the little group that y'all have probably wouldn't exist because the guild system is not pushed as well in Guild Wars 2 as it was in Guild Wars 1, which we're gonna get into Guild Wars in a little bit. But yeah, Wyvern, I see you. Yes.
Kappa.
I have, yeah, it's fine.
All right.
But and it's also like I think literally every other MMO I've tried when it comes to PvP, which WoW still they mess up a lot when it's new features that there's like we're gonna come up with something new, and usually the where it has the worst impact or the best impact is usually in PvP. And so I really like the PvP of WoW. I know there's a lot of other MMOs where the combat systems are probably a little more complicated than just like you tab target, and because WoW has some skill shot sort of things. Like I play my hunter, like my pets will just chase and kill and do damage, and then I use my bow, and those will always hit as long as I'm in range. But
Yeah.
all like my crowd control abilities are still done with a like circle targeter and stuff. And so there's a lot of skill to like doing that and then lining up everything. Did we get the cameras are fixed?
yeah,
Yeah, I think
we
we're good.
fixed the cameras. Hacker Man is here. I figured it out.
Look at him.
I did the
There
math.
we go.
Snowden was here.
My combined intellect of like a 5th grade education roughly has succeeded in overcoming the struggles that are camera issues.
But he did it. We persevered.
Yeah, gosh darn it, Kitty. Okay. So moving on to Guild Wars. Did you guys already mention came out April 26, 2005?
Oh, we were talking a little bit about
okay,
WoW.
y'all were talking about
kind of
okay.
meshing them.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. So
Yeah.
I know we have a lot of like Guild Wars people who may listen to this at some point or who are here listening to this now, and it's a series that I'm really just getting into. I did play Guild Wars 1. The strangest thing for me after playing World of Warcraft and then trying to go in and play Guild Wars 1 was that you couldn't jump. You could not jump in Guild Wars 1. Yeah, fun fact.
Ooh.
Yeah, did you know that?
I don't even.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
played a good bit.
can't keep my thumb off my space bar when I'm playing MMOs. So
That's-
like that sounds tough for me.
Yeah, same, largely same. I jump impulsively everywhere I go.
Me too.
It is like first nature to me, not even second nature. Like I instinctually press my space bar whenever I have free time. Yeah, you couldn't jump or swim. Thank you, Wyvern. Yes. And it was the first MMO to adopt a business model that was not based on monthly sub fees, which was a significant thing for its time. Especially after, because World of Warcraft sub fees, Star Wars Galaxy's sub fees, EverQuest sub fees, Ultima I believe also had a subscription, but like I might have to double check that one. But still, like very very big deal to be able to just purchase the game once and then have the servers always there and available to you and not have to spend any more money on it. I mean that is
Totally.
a pretty significant boon. On top of that, it featured a dual class system in which you pretty much locked in your main class, and then you could choose another class to also be after that. So, like, you could choose for your first class, you could choose like Warrior or something like that, and then if you want to go Necro, you could go Necro or Ranger Necro or whatever like the other like class combinations were.
So is that like dual specking, or are you actually being both of those classes at once?
You want to take this one, Grynth? I know you were.
I mean, we might need some chat help on full clarity of it if some Guild Wars 1 players are here. But like, I remember
just
playing. I'm
curious
trying
as
to think of what it was. So like, my main was I've always played Ranger in Guild Wars,
Yeah,
and so
okay.
it was like I don't remember. if it was Mesmer a thing in Guild Wars 1. I hope it was, because that's what, like, because I keep seeing the letters. So like the way that I see it is the letters that would pop up when you would look up these builds that people had already made. It
Yeah.
would be like Ranger would just be RA, and then Mesmer ME, and I remember like putting all those together in different ways. But so you'd obviously have your main class or whatever, so you'd have access to all your Ranger stuff.
Yeah.
And then you would
Okay.
kind of like, yeah, so he says you would get your first and second class skill and swap secondary class and skills.
Wow.
Oh, so it was like dual specking, and that like you would have to sit there and swap to that other
No.
spec.
You would play both at the same time. You would play both at the same
Oh.
time. Yeah, you
But
would have
so
access to both sets of skills.
That it would kind of be
That's
like
kinda
is
cool.
like in WoW, you're like a beast mastery hunter. You
Yeah.
have your tab that's all hunter skills,
Mhm.
and then you have your other one that's beast mastery skills. But it's a little bit further than that in the sense of like, okay, I'm a BM hunter, but I also have balance druid abilities available to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of like so you're kind of playing two things at once, and it was interesting.
That's pretty cool.
I was really just starting out when that was my first MMO. Was I played when Nightfall came out, Guild Wars Nightfall came out. I played. I bought Factions of Prophecies after playing Nightfall, and so I went back and played all that stuff because there were classes that I didn't play unless I had. So I wanted to play some of these other ones.
I actually had no idea that you played Guild Wars before World of Warcraft. Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. Okay, so when did you start playing World of Warcraft? Was it Wrath of the Lich King?
Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay,
Like
gotcha.
very end of Wrath of the Lich King.
Nice.
Yeah, I got I had just a crappy Dell laptop or whatever, and I played on our Dell desktop for a while too. So
I played on a Dell laptop when I started.
Yeah,
WoW.
so I played on. Well, no, not on WoW. I played
okay.
because, or I just didn't even. My brother had played. He played WoW during vanilla a little bit, but I never did. I think I tried a little bit, but it was. I mean, I maybe tried it for like a little bit of a day, and then that was it. But I played the first one that I played was Guild. I had friends at school that played Guild Wars, and they got me into it. And then, but in my senior year of college, I was into music a lot, and so I got a MacBook. Guild Wars is not available on Mac, so I literally Googled MMOs like Guild Wars for Mac, and it top thing on every search you could possibly find.
Wow.
World of Warcraft.
Since you actually mentioned that it wasn't available on MacBooks, this is kind of an okay time to bring this up, but I actually went like in preparation for this, and I mentioned this to you guys earlier in the week, but I went and listened to a podcast from 2005, and it was a World of Warcraft specific podcast from 2005. So it was 1 year, or probably like closer to 6 or 7 months after the game launched, because it did release in late 2004. And it was honestly like just putting my head inside of a time capsule and just like listening to these people talk about the things that were happening back then, because nowadays it's a little more common for people to play games on Mac, even though the support isn't there. But listening to them talk about how it was so crazy that a game developer had taken the time to make sure their game worked on Mac, which World of Warcraft did. World of Warcraft had a solid client on both PC and Mac at launch. And
my friend that got me into WoW was a Mac player.
Yeah. And like,
anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they were able to reach a whole nother audience there because of how many people were using Macs at the time. Because I mean, I know Apple, the state it's in now, is kind of like the like almost bougie, like very mainstream. Like our products are a premium product, but they were founded on being the more affordable option. You know, I mean, that was where Mac started. It was simpler. It was more affordable. It was easy. Are you holding up AirPods?
Yes, sir.
Say nice. Can't hear your haters.
Had to flex real quick.
Yeah. So I mean, you know how expensive it is, but I mean, back in the day where Apple started was being the more like simple, straightforward, not complex option. Because I remember my dad and his best friend Dan, both of them equally responsible for getting me into both EverQuest, World of Warcraft, probably gaming as a whole. They used to stay up playing video games until they had to go to work the next morning most nights. Like just while I was growing up, like they're both super hardcore gamers, played Dungeons and Dragons, like super like awesome, just nerdy guys. Like, and I remember listening to them talk about how complicated it was to go to Fry's Electronics and search through bins of PC parts looking for RAM sticks to put in their PC so they could run whatever game they're trying to run, or a graphics card to put in their PC. And they were looking for one that, first of all, was not defective because it was just like a clearance bin or whatever, you know? And like, obviously there were more expensive options, but like it was more expensive, like quite expensive to build a powerful PC relative to how much they were making, you know? And I remember them digging through and pulling out sticks of RAM in like these bins of electronics at Fry's Electronics, and sometimes they get them home and they wouldn't even be compatible, you know? Versus like being able to just load up World of Warcraft on a Mac and like play it. I mean, that was a big deal, you know, that they had a Mac client. They got a lot of accessibility and a lot of audience out of that. But like listening to this podcast that these guys were doing, like it was absolutely incredible hearing them talk about World of Warcraft at the time, and like neither of them had even hit 60 yet, you know. And they were not hardcore players, you know. This was kind of an indication of where content creation was at the time too, because they had people going on their message boards and talking to them and excited about their podcast, because they actually talk about like Apple just announcing that they were going to be entering into podcasts and have you able to listen to podcasts through their service. Like, and like all of that was happening around the same time, and content creation was really in its infancy. And these guys were one of the first like World of Warcraft podcasts to ever come out. I think it was World of Warcast, I want to say is the name of it. But like,
where did they upload those before like podcast services were available?
I believe you had a website and you hosted it locally from your computer onto a website using a dedicated PC to host it.
Nice.
And like, just hearing them and how little they knew about MMORPGs and how little they cared about the meta, and like listening to them talk about how they want to get more armor class on their gear when they're playing a druid and a mage, which armor class is arguably one of the least relevant stats in World of Warcraft Classic for those two classes specifically. I mean, armor class is realistically only useful if you're tanking. Otherwise, there's a million other things that you could be focusing on. Listening to the mage player specifically talk about how all he wanted was intellect, which to an extent is true. But I mean, we know now, and he was talking about like playing fire mage because he felt like that was the damage dealing class, or playing arcane, you know, is what he was speccing into at the time. But how he wanted to go into fire because that was the damage class. And we know now, looking back on it in our, you know, meta brains and all that stuff, like Frost was really the only viable option for the first like 2 raid tiers in World of Warcraft Classic. And just like how little they understood and knew about it, but how much fun they were and how much of a sense of wonder there was about everything that they were doing was so incredible to listen to, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool.
And like,
I wonder if one day somebody might look back on our podcast like that and go, wow, remember when when the Xbox Series X came out?
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh my God.
They're like, what an ancient piece of technology. Listen to these dinosaurs.
When you buy a console and it gets implanted into a chip in your head instead of a physical object.
when all of your consoles are basically just Google glasses, just like that work properly, you know? Like, and you just look around and see video games. Yeah.
That is really cool though. I like that you can go back and kind of see where everything was at one point, especially with WoW or any other game that people were making content for back then. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, there is such a storied history for MMORPGs specifically because of how social they were and how much this was something that you experienced with other people. So these are memories that are more ingrained in your mind, because I'm sure everybody remembers the first video game that they played, you know, but that memory I think doesn't mean as much to people as the first memory that they shared with someone else in a video game that they played, you know? Yeah. Like the first time that they really like got close with somebody and got to know them and did content with them, or went and finished a raid with somebody or ran dungeons with somebody, like those are the memories that really stick out to me, you know? Is my first experiences doing those with like my friends or my family, in as the case was for me, because like I said, I played with like my dad, you know? That was who got me into it. I had to get my brain turning to like think there, because I'm sitting here just like, I was like, no way my first gaming memory was a LAN for Halo, and then my brain kept going and it more come up, and and I got to some Super Nintendo with my grandma playing Cuber. Yeah, there we go. I remember that, but there's a cat, I see him or her. Ori. And but yeah, that's because that's weird that the first thing that popped up in my head was some Halo 1 LANs with other people, like doing, or just with a group of people doing something instead of
immediately remembering, yeah, Super Nintendo memories.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly. And for a lot of people who didn't have the ability to go to LAN events and things like that, a lot of the first experiences that people had online with other people was either I know Spicy Doom in the chat. He was a guest on the show as well. Awesome dude. He mentioned Halo 3 for him. So it was either games like that, multiplayer online games where you were fighting other people or playing with your friends doing co-op. I know like doing the Halo campaign co-op was a big thing for me also. Or online MMORPGs like this, and I cannot overstate the value of having those moments with your friends and your family, like
Yeah.
it is something that is not replicated anywhere else except for maybe like experiencing something for the first time with someone in real life. I mean, that is probably the closest that you can
Yeah.
get to like sharing, going on vacation with someone and seeing something magnificent and sharing that sight with them,
Yeah, totally.
Um,
And with MMORPG, like you have this big open world that, if you play it enough and you're that invested, it can almost feel like a real place for you. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you make those memories. And yeah, man, I think my one of my first like really
Mhm.
notable social like gaming memories was with WoW. Like just running dungeons with my friends, farming for materials to work on our professions, and like that kind of stuff. It really does stick with you, man. Totally. And
Yeah.
I think that contributes to the longevity of that game because they know what they're doing. Like they do that on purpose. They're trying to make it a social experience for everybody.
Yeah.
And the more memories and the more like nostalgia and fun that's attached to that game, the longer it'll go. It'll just and I mean, clearly we see that it's still kicking today strongly.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to cap off our history section with another honorable mention and then like touch a little bit on that. But Star Wars: The Old Republic and WildStar, also too, like not insignificant MMORPG games that released. WildStar now dead, much to the chagrin of many of its community members and people who didn't get to try it now in a day and age where people are very hungry for new MMORPG games. I mentioned this on my Reddit post and got downvoted horribly for it because apparently the MMORPG Reddit community does not agree with me. But I firmly believe that if you re-released WildStar with all of the updates that it got and like all of the changes that happened later in its life cycle as it was starting to die out again today, as a re-release with all of the content that it had, it would do better. I do firmly believe that. I just think that it was a time where there were too many other good options and there were too many issues at launch and not enough like strong endgame content that they eventually fixed. But again, gamers have a short attention span, so you lose them quickly.
I did not like WildStar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
tried that one and I did not have fun.
yeah. And having that sour taste in your mouth, I mean, it's hard to go back and try something again. But
Yeah.
I did play a little Star Wars: The Old Republic. Neat game. Felt like more of a like
that one.
yeah. Like for me personally, because I didn't like reach late game or anything like that, it felt the most isolated of any MMORPG I've played.
It didn't feel very social to me. Like
Yeah.
probably because
It was, yeah, no, it definitely wasn't.
yeah, I played alone. I didn't really play with any people I knew, and I didn't really meet anybody in that game, so it just kind of felt like this MMO that was advertised as an MMO, but really just like a single player like journey that wasn't even particularly that cool. Like if I didn't like Star Wars, I would have
See,
really just cursed that game.
the leveling for me on that one was. Uh, I'm trying to fight myself on saying that for me that was 100% the most enjoyable leveling experience that I've had.
Wow.
It was very long, but they each like if you played a bounty hunter or you played an inquisitor, you had a separate storyline than everyone else.
Hmm.
And that storyline changed even further based on your alignment, whether you were good or evil.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
So
I
the
liked
story,
that
yeah,
a lot.
okay.
Huh.
Well, okay, yeah. So, and those are very separate from the normal when you go to a planet like storylines. That's what your quests and your side quests or whatever. But your main mission or your main missions, based on your class, are some of the best MMO content that I have ever seen.
Wow.
Um,
It's pretty fun. That was a
and
good
then
part for me as well.
and I just have a lot of other like good memories of Star Wars, and one is more of that it was just such a memorable thing that happened,
Yeah.
but not in a not in necessarily a good way when they
Yeah.
get into it. So we let our friend Adam
Mm-hmm.
decide the server because he was the first one out of all of us that was like, "Hey, like I want to play this. Who wants to play this with me?" So we're like, "Yeah." It's like pick a server and tell us where we're playing. And so he picked a server just out of just pure randomness. And not like you do today, where it's like if you're coming back to WoW and you're making a new account, you're like, okay, where are the people at? And you make a character there. It was open season for Star Wars, so he picks the server, and everyone goes through. We level up, we get there. We're pretty much more into PvP at this point. We jump into PvP, and we're Sith side.
Of
Whatever.
course, naturally.
And I'm playing a Sith. I pick a Sith Marauder as the one that has the 2 one-handed.
That's what I played. Yes,
they're garbage at PvP at the beginning.
I didn't never feel very strong for a guy with 2 lightsabers.
Eventually, they buffed them, and they were a bleed build. Shocker that this is the one that I wanted to play, and I want to play a Feral Druid and WoW, and they're garbage as well. But they eventually buffed them to where they were nuts. But we're getting into PvP and stuff, and there is this person that is on the good whatever the Jedi side.
Yeah.
And their name is Shinarika.
Uh-huh.
And they are playing the class whatever the Jedi with the 2-handed lightsaber that one comes out of each end or
like
whatever,
a bow staff almost.
Stuff at you.
Yeah.
This is the world first rank 50 Valor player in Star Wars.
Oh.
First elite PvP player in the game is on our server on the opposite side.
Oh.
I remember going into it was the one weird PvP map where you had to like take control of a room and then you get to the next one and it's like checkpoint based, like kind of pushing the enemy team back.
Yeah.
And so I find this person, and at the time I don't know who they are, but I recognize their name because we fight them a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my little Marauder and I'm doing nothing, like with my bleeds and everything. And they literally stand still and say, "Are you done yet?" Because you can proximity text chat without any interference. Wow. And then they proceed to 2-shot me. I'm just like, sick. So Adam put us against the top 3 players on Star Wars.
Incredible.
Not knowing that it was going to be that way.
What a gift.
Because it was them, and then they had another friend he played a smuggler, and so they would come out of Invis and they would do this weird pistol whip thing, and it would pretty much one-shot you. They were crazy. But it's insane that we just accidentally picked the opposite side of their server. But it's still good memories to just think back. Like, it's just
that's pretty cool. You obviously didn't forget it, so that's
that's
good.
And they made YouTube videos and stuff, and I was in them on the getting 2-shot, 1-shot by rocks flying through the air.
You were the target of their clip montages. You were the cannon fodder.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it was so cool. And then it was just and this is the reason that it ended up going free to play and was so bad, is the in-game content. It's like the PvP was fun and replayable, but the in-game content was not there. Besides the story, like the alignment choices that you make going through the story of like a dungeon or anything like that, like those were cool. But the raids were so much of a joke that we went in, we played basically only PvP for like 3 or 4 months, and then our guild had people that had pretty much quit already, and they were like, "Hey, we need bodies for a raid. Do you guys want to come do it with us?" And we're like, "Yeah." And we cleared the entire raid in 30 minutes.
Wow.
In very average PvP gear.
Wow.
Just like,
oh yeah.
So they did not know what they were doing with in-game.
I mean, okay, kind of hell yeah, but also kind of like it shouldn't be like that, you know?
I know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, this was 2011, you know? You look at the landscape of MMOs, we had started to shift towards like the feeling of adventure that you have leveling up versus race to end game and then experience the rest of the game, you know? Like, what do we do now that we hit max level? Now you can play the game,
especially when the begining comes out and there's one raid and they clear it in the first week and then they have nothing to do.
Wow.
Like, it was bad. I had another thing. Oh yeah, like the fact that the only thing that I can actually remember from the raid is being a puzzle to get to the next part instead of any of the actual boss mechanics.
Oh,
pretty bad.
That's weird.
I mean, we like puzzles, but still.
These weird little like try-like things, and you had to like work as a group to like defend them, and that was it.
Yeah.
But the boss fight, not a clue. Like, but it was that bad.
So
kind of weird.
that wraps up our history section. I mean, hopefully y'all listeners, viewers, all that enjoyed that. But we are going to be moving on to the next section of our podcast here called Modern Re-Releases, which I am particularly excited to talk about. So Joker, you want to handle these two real quick?
Yeah,
We got 2 games on the
so
list.
the first modern re-release we'll be discussing is Old School RuneScape, which was released on February 22nd in 2013. Um, this game was this is an interesting one because like we said, RuneScape was, well, it was 2001, right?
Yeah.
That it was released in? Yeah, it's been around that long. They kind of just people wanted the old school back.
They did.
They didn't like where the game was going, I guess, and RuneScape said, "All right, well, here you go. Here's your old school version."
Yeah. And I mean, the second
But
game on our list to like kind of cut ahead is World of Warcraft
Yeah.
Classic. But I mean, this was kind of a big reason that World of Warcraft Classic even exists, as much as
exactly, yeah.
all the community fighting for it and all that stuff. I mean,
They needed
One-
a proof of concept, and then
Yeah.
before they jumped on it, because Activision is 100% how much money can we make, and we do not care about your experience at this point.
yeah, Activision are
Which is
suits.
sad,
Yeah.
but that's them now.
One notable thing I wanted to say about RuneScape that I thought was awesome was that they do updates based off of polls apparently. So
Yep.
people
Wow.
will vote on things that they want in the game, and if it wins majority, I think, then they put it in. Like, I thought that was really cool way to get the community involved with what they actually want instead of giving them what the developer thinks they want, you know?
Yeah, because
Man.
that like their first go at RuneScape was just the developers are like, okay, this is what we came up with, this is what you got, next
Yeah.
expansion, whatever. And
Yeah.
then Old School, and then the game, I assume for the most part, died out a little bit. And then everyone's like, hey, we miss the old days. And they're like, okay. And they figure it out. And they pick a certain patch, whatever, and they roll back, or they create a whole, or they basically copy paste that patch to a new section and go back to that whatever their OG launch. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna still come up with features that I assume that they added in any features that came along that were universally like good and accepted.
Yeah.
But anything new that they came up with, they're like, we're not just gonna throw this in. And they're like, they would be like, go on their forums or wherever they do it, wherever they actually hold their polls for it, and they post it, and they're like, all right, new feature. They explain it in as much detail as they possibly can, and then it's yes or no.
See,
And
that's
there is no, if they vote yes, boom.
I think that's awesome.
I
It's
wish
so
more
cool.
developers
So-
would do that today.
Yeah, totally.
Honestly.
I was a little I thought that like they actually pitch stuff at first, but like I actually kind of like that a little more even because
Yeah.
then you're like still leaving it in the hands of the professionals, but like at the same time you're still getting that community feedback
Yeah.
that actually matters.
I wish Blizzard would do this because we have the current
Oh
system.
yeah.
The new expansion looks incredible, except for like 1 or 2 features. And I wish they would be like, hey, yes or no, and it would be like a resounding no at this point.
And then just cut it off like a
We're getting
tumor.
it anyways.
Just cut it off.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to deal with it anymore. So, also, I
It's a
mean,
good system.
one other big highlight I want to mention here about Old School RuneScape specifically, the direction the developers took it was like being able to buy a lot of things in game with real money. You know, they really like pushed the cash shop heavily into the game, and Old School RuneScape, even like on message boards today, when people are asking for recommendations on whether they should play Old School RuneScape or RuneScape, it's like, well, do you have a lot of time or do you have a lot of money? You know? If you have a lot of time and you're just looking for a traditional, like, good MMORPG experience, go play Old School RuneScape. If you have money and you don't have a lot of time and you just want to be able to buy stuff and enjoy yourself, go play RuneScape 3, you know? I believe is
Yeah.
what it's classified as now. Still RuneScape, but, like, it's the third major iteration of the game. And that was, like, a major, like, difference between the two.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you tried Old School RuneScape?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I tried it. I tried it for all of like 10 minutes, and it was. I mean, it was slow. I mean, it was Old School RuneScape, you know, and it's not my thing. You know, it is something that I've watched people play, and I've talked to people about it, and I understand what makes it a good game. It's just a good game that isn't for me, and that's okay.
You know, Vince, you can let go of the whole cow thing, man. It's
Yeah.
one day it'll.
I actually didn't even encounter cows. I never made it out of the tutorial. I didn't give myself that chance.
Yeah, that might have been best.
Yeah, I was called back immediately to being, 10 years old or 11 years old or however old I was, and just cows just dancing in my brain, and had to shut it down. Went ahead and uninstalled it there.
There you go.
But speaking specifically to World of Warcraft Classic, I mean, this was something that had been, I guess, realized in private servers on some level. It did officially release August 26, 2019, which was a very exciting day for me personally, as someone who did play World of Warcraft private servers, did play World of Warcraft during its vanilla state, and like for people who don't know or people who aren't familiar with World of Warcraft, this was essentially a recreation of World of Warcraft as it launched back in 2004 after a few like patches and things like that. And like I remember loading this game up, World of Warcraft Classic after the release, and
Yeah.
I was immediately called back to my first experience loading up World of Warcraft, and like I created a dwarf hunter named Blastaway because again I was like 10, and like that was where my brain was at creatively with character names, and
Have
I
a sick
created
name, dude.
That's better than
like it.
most stuff I see now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and like I created a dwarf hunter because my dad had created a dwarf hunter, and obviously, like, I'm going to do exactly what he did.
Yep.
And I remember loading into Dunmorrow, which is the starting zone for the dwarves. And back before every single person playing World of Warcraft played Horde, I made an alliance character. And like, I remember hearing the music and watching the intro cutscene, and it starts you in the capital city of Ironforge, and it kind of like does this helicopter pan out over the entire valley, and it's all snowed over, and there's like animals walking around like bears and boars, and there's a lot of trees with snow on them, and just mountains everywhere, caves. You can see a couple of cities like line your path on the way in, and eventually it leads you to Coldridge Valley, which is the like very like intro, like basically tutorial zone, and you're in there and the music's playing and it's snowing a little bit because they had weather effects in the game at that time, and you have a person with a quest over their head in front of you, and like being 9 years old and like experiencing that for the first time and seeing other players running around me and like also doing the quest that I was doing, and like they would /wave to like emote wave at me as they ran by and that sort of thing, and like people, like the first time someone traded me a bag in game and stuff like that, and like just how friendly everybody was because we were all experiencing something like this for the first time together. I mean, it was nothing short of magical, honestly. And being able to go back in World of Warcraft Classic, like 15 years later, and I mean, this was last year. So I was like 24, 25 at the release time of this. I think I was 24. And being able to like re-experience that moment for the first time in an official capacity, because like private servers kind of recreated it, but not perfectly. Like it was always kind of janky, and most of them were on servers that were outside of the country, so you're playing on like 300 ping or more, like sort of a thing, and it is not great, but it was serviceable, and finally being like I can finally experience this again for real. And I made a gnome mage this time because I decided to go with a meta choice because they were the only real outside of like Fury Warriors, who were already max level and geared, and then also rogues with some decent gear were the best DPS in the game. Like by far, by a long shot. It was not even close. It was so imbalanced, and I didn't care, and I loved it. And like loading into Dunmorrow that first time and hearing the music play and watching the cinematic and seeing all of these other people running around who were experiencing that same like shot of nostalgia that I experienced. I mean, it was not quite as magical the second time, but it definitely called me back to that moment when I was like 10 years old, like sitting and my dad was watching me create my character and play and go through all this for the first time. And like, I mean, I almost cried. It was emotional, man, because World of Warcraft has been such a huge part of my life for such a long time,
Yeah, totally. I think that's exactly like the nerve they wanted to hit with everyone too. Like with Classic, they knew people would come back to it and share exactly what you're discussing, that just overwhelming feeling of nostalgia. It might not equate to the first time, but this is where the people that are like super interested in it kind of got their roots,
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that part about modern re-releases. Like I'm a sucker for nostalgia, and I fall for that stuff a lot, but like I like the way it makes me feel. You get to kind of go back a little bit, man. It's awesome. I respect it.
Like it was good, like all those like nostalgia points or whatever, but sadly it was completely plagued by like just toxic players
Yeah.
and the speed running like community, whatever.
Yeah.
It became a lot less about the adventure and more about world first, even though world first was completed 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it I just laugh all the time now. It's like they come out and they're like, so and so guild got world first in classic, and I'm like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't count.
That raid was cleared 15 years ago, sir.
Yep.
Just because you speed run it in less than an hour doesn't
See,
mean you got world first.
and that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like that's a good point because when you really once that initial nostalgia goes away and you're just playing that game, I feel like you kind of realize that it's just like a facade. Like it's just trying to be something that it never can be again. Like
Yeah.
you'll never experience it for the first time ever again, as much as you
Yeah.
want to.
Well, and
Yep.
and not only the game itself, but also the state that the world was in at that time. Like
Yeah.
we talk about again World of Warcraft being really the genesis for MMORPGs hitting the masses. I mean that was really the first one that went mainstream. I remember walking down the street at Disneyland or going out to a pizza parlor or like going to McDonald's or going to school and hearing people talking about World of Warcraft and Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King like it was just common stuff to talk about. Like the type of thing that if I tried to bring up in my school in my friend circle, people would be like, "You nerd, shut up."
Yeah.
Because this was the like early to mid 2000s, and World of Warcraft is really like what started all of that. And I feel like a lot of people miss the fact that what made World of Warcraft so special when it came out was that there hadn't really been anything like that on that scale before. Even though there were other MMORPGs, they had a higher barrier for entry, they were a little harder, they weren't as social, they weren't, and at the same time as doable on your own. Because a lot of stuff in EverQuest you had to group up for, you had no choice,
Yeah.
and like it wasn't very accessible. But this was something that already had a background, already had a lot of loyal fans to the franchise in Warcraft and to the company in Blizzard, And then on top of that, a bunch of people that were ready for a new generation of video games that was more connected and more personal and more like multiplayer friendly and more accessible than ever before. And there was so much more of a sense of wonder and appreciation for what that was that people didn't care about being a slave to the meta. They didn't care about pumping out the most DPS. Like the like highest of the highest end players in World of Warcraft Classic back in the like mid 2000s, sure, they cared. But I would say the majority of the player base was not the sweaty like meta slaves that they are now, where you have to be performing at peak efficiency 100% of the time. Your parses better be perfect. Like we only care about you doing your rotation properly. Like the dude who I was talking about on the podcast was playing a druid, and he talks about how in the middle of his dungeon sometimes he wouldn't be doing as much damage as the mages, but he would be able to hop into bear form and off tank a mob, or he'd be able to like shift out and heal somebody, and like he said there were times where I was able to save my group because I was able to use my utility, even though I know I will never be able to do the damage of a mage. And that was fine back then, And nowadays people are like, oh, you're playing a druid, and they laugh at you because you're trying to do DPS on a druid, which isn't the meta right now. Yeah. I mean, speaking to Grynth specifically there, I mean...
Or not, well, I guess I have the option.
Yeah.
It's like, I would love for Feral Druid to be the best, but it's just not. So I have a Hunter alt because they're insane.
Yeah.
And it still kind of plays the same, like... I mean, at least I guess the same. I can't even think of what, or just aesthetic, I guess, because I played BM Hunter. So it's still
a lot of like beasts, very feral influenced, all that stuff. Yeah,
you still get it, like you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be a whole other topic on its own, man. Just like discussing how like this just meta slave competitive nature has kind of plagued a lot of gaming. That's a real hard take for me, but like
and
that's
also,
how I feel. I'm
like,
very casual.
I was like, I'll defend that side of it though, because like I do. Well, I'm not a world first raider by any means, but they like there are people that take it way more serious than I am. But the way that I look at it, so it's like I have my feral druid that it's just, on the fun scale of everything, that's the one I like to play.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the hunter, and the hunter generally outperforms the druid. So how I've set it to my guild going into this next expansion is, if Feral Druid is good enough, I'm going to play my Feral Druid. But if it's not, and we get into mythic rating,
Yeah.
I'm not going to weigh the group down by trying to bring my feral druid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
That
So, like,
sucks,
that's-
man. Like you don't have that freedom to play what you want to play just because the meta doesn't allow it.
But
Like,
I do at the same time because of how my guild functions. Because so we're gonna do our Tuesday, Thursday nights, are our hardcore rating schedule. Like those are the only like really scheduled days that we have, and where we go in there for like 2.5 hours a night, and we just go ham.
Yeah.
But then we also have our Saturday run, which is usually one difficulty lower than what our main raid pushes. But I still have time to raid as my druid. Going into the next expansion, but there's still always a chance because like I don't even like. Usually Wednesdays are when they push out the beta builds that are buffs and nerfs or whatever. So I still have time to see like
if they're going to get enough buffs to be viable. Yeah.
yeah.
Because I know Hunter's good enough at this point, and it's honestly more of a worry of like, hopefully they don't also knock my Hunter down.
Yeah.
But it's like so like. It's from my end, mine's like more of like the not even semi-hardcore, but like the fact that I'm willing to like, hey, I'll play my other character that I consider my alt to not weigh the group down. But then you get these people that are in the world first rating and stuff, and that's not an option. There's like if you apply to these guilds and say I'm a feral druid, you're getting declined.
Yeah, 100%.
You're not coming in.
That sucks, man. Like,
but that's also on
I hate
Blizzard's
that.
end. They need to fix.
Oh,
that
totally.
class.
Yeah.
Personally, and I actually take no issue with people who are trying to raid mythic progression in like the highest tier of content and like really trying to push that, and that is their goal for their guild. The issue that I have specifically with like being so obsessed with the meta is when that starts to bleed into people who are doing lower level content, and because they just get that elitist mentality, and because they watch all the streamers on Twitch and they watch all the YouTube videos saying, oh, feral druids are terrible. Realistically, if you were to take Grynth on his feral druid into a mid-level keystone, which is like a time dungeon essentially that scales in difficulty based on how high you're doing, and we'll say a mythic 7, which is realistically a joke right now in the current content, okay? I mean, this is trivial. Obviously, it's harder at the start of an expansion or earlier in content and things like that, but like right now, that's a joke. You would see him on his feral druid in gear that is better than most of the other people in a group getting declined.
Yep.
Okay? Just because he's a feral druid. When realistically, he could probably go in there and carry that key. And the difference in DPS between him and one of the meta-like classes at that level is so marginal, it would not matter at all. Things are going to die so quickly that it literally would not even be relevant. Okay?
I would actually look really bad on DPS in a lower key.
Hey, come on, we're trying to compliment you here.
Well, but I mean,
No,
specifically because it dies too quick.
Exactly. If it lasted long, because that was the same issue I had with I played a mage for most of the end of this expansion at whatever my highest level of difficulty was, and I was playing a fire mage is like the meta, or at least when corruption existed, they were nuts. But if you did not do a keystone high enough, things did not live long enough for fire mage to be that good.
Yeah.
So you would actually benefit from playing Frost. And that's the same problem that Feral has. Feral can do really well on AoE, especially now, because Primal Wrath and Thrash are uncapped AoE abilities. So I can bleed everything, but if they die too quickly and I don't get the full value out of that Primal Wrath that can be applied to everything, then it's like, why are you not just playing your Boomkin?
Yeah.
Or why am I not applying as a Guardian Druid and tanking instead?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's the landscape though nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
And we took something like World of Warcraft Classic that was so like beautiful and so magical as the way it is because it let you be who you wanted to be, play your character your way, and like go out and do the content and experience it for yourself for the first time, like experiencing the universe that is Warcraft in that way for the first time for many people. And and when I say for many people, I mean for everybody except for the people who were developing the game who had got to experience it sooner. And like, so for like 99.9 repeating percent like of the population the first time. And like the magic of that experience is lost when you boil it down to these are the numbers, this is what's good, this is what's worth playing, you know? And then you just say screw everybody else because reasons. When you're not even doing content that is the content that would require you to care that much. People just get such an elitist mentality about it that they refuse to even open their mind to the possibility that this is like just a person who's trying to get their stuff done and they will contribute enough either way, that they just get caught up on the idea of doing whatever their favorite streamer or YouTuber tells them to do. And that's just not right. It's just wrong.
Or even a person that's just there to have fun, dude. Because imagine having fun and playing a video game, right? Like, what? Like, what if this person just doesn't care that much and they're just they're here to build their character because this is like what they like to do. They're not tripping on the meta. They're just wanting to get into a dungeon for some gear or like
Yeah.
and there's options for that, I guess, with like grade finder and stuff. Like if you're not like that serious
Oh.
about it, but like
I would argue that Raid
What a
Finder.
nightmare.
I would argue that
Yeah.
Raid Finder with random players is harder
It's-
than
so it's
heroic
like-
with people you know.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's like it's normal mode and then heroic and then like light mythic progression and then raid finder and then like world first mythic raiding.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
Yeah.
just
But you-
because so if you form a normal mode raid, you can literally say you're like, okay, that guy's this class with this item level, and you can pick them. If you you can queue into raid finder, and there's a chance that you're gonna have 14 feral druids, and they're gonna do 1,000 DPS instead of the hunters that are doing 3K.
Yeah.
yeah,
And you're not gonna
totally.
get anything done.
But you know what I'm like. People forget about the fun sometimes, man.
They
That's
do.
all I'm trying to say.
They do. So kind of skipping off of, even though we've kind of already started to kind of bridge into this a little bit, we're moving on to games that are relevant today. And obviously, like we've gone like quite far in our show already. And I mentioned to the guys beforehand, and maybe I should have said this at the start of the episode, so I'm sorry, but this may end up being our longest episode that we ever do. Just because, again, you're sitting here with three people who love MMORPGs and have a lot to say about them and a lot of opinions. So buckle up, guys, because it's getting real in here. Talking about relevant games here, we're talking about The Elder Scrolls Online is the first one on the list. And this is one that I played. And I know you played this quite a bit as well, right, Grynth? I mean, you did like dabble in some Elder Scrolls Online?
Very little bit when you did.
That's what I thought. Okay. So we kind of experienced about the same amount of it at the same time. I know someone in chat just told Joker to wash his hands. He never washes his hands. That's a myth. And
He's got a clean wiener. He doesn't need
yeah,
to.
exactly. So when I tried Elder Scrolls Online, this one is outside of like, I would say this is in contention with Star Wars: The Old Republic as feeling the most isolated to me. And maybe that's because the biggest part of this content that I enjoyed was the story content and the quests and stuff like that, you know? Like I really thoroughly enjoyed like how the quests felt fleshed out and they were in environments that were familiar. If you are familiar with the Elder Scrolls franchise and like going around to places that you know, seeing characters that you were familiar with, like getting to experience that world in another way, almost similar to how it felt playing World of Warcraft after, you know, playing Warcraft 3. And I thought that was really cool. And the voice acting is incredibly well done. And the quests are interesting and have a solid storyline and they're fun to go through. But the rest of the game just felt really shallow to me. And the combat felt so terrible. I did not enjoy it at all. I mean, do you have any opinions on the combat on this one?
I mean, I liked it, but not in a sense because, like, obviously, the optimal way to play any MMO is basically as zoomed out as you can possibly get, so you can see everything.
Yeah.
But like, the strengths of ESO's combat would be playing in first person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what, like, that's Skyrim. That's Morrowind or whatever. All that, like, is you got okay, I got a fire spell in this hand. I got a sword over here.
Yeah.
And then you're in there. But it's like for an MMO, like that's just really difficult to like even like play around. Is if you're that zoomed in, there's so much in your peripheral vision that you're just gonna miss.
Yeah.
That you don't need to miss.
Have you played Elder Scrolls Online, Joker? Did you dabble in that at all? What did you think about it?
I initially bought it because I think I like just kind of got over my Skyrim kick after and then I wanted to play more Elder Scrolls content. So I got into Elder Scrolls Online because I figured it would give me a different avenue into that universe. Which I liked. I thought the lore was really cool. I always enjoy Elder Scrolls lore. The game itself, I eventually got burnt out on because it's just it felt very monotonous to me. Like
it's very bland. I mean, outside of the main story content and the story missions that are voice acted and great, I mean, the dungeons feel kind of bland. The combat is very clunky. The weapon swapping is like the fact that you can just constantly swap weapons and basically everybody can be a mage, you know, and just be spamming spells on top of whatever else that they're doing in PvP.
Yeah.
It's incredibly unbalanced, you know, and I feel like a game like that with like that action-oriented combat could lend itself very well to PvP if they could just figure out their combat and make it work properly and not be as clunky and spammy and like just a mess that it is right now. And then on top of that, like I still like hop into the Reddit every now and then, and there's people being like, "Yeah, Dungeon Finder still isn't working," and I'm like, "Dungeon Finder, like
And this game came out in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, April 4th, 2014 was the release for this one, and it's like the dungeons are my favorite part of content in every game like this. I mean, I am not quiet about that. I love dungeon content. I think it's easy to pick up a group of people and just run through and smash something. I was doing heroic dungeons in World of Warcraft on my druid yesterday, even though that's not the most optimal way to gear or whatever. Like, I was just running through and doing it because it was fun, because that's the content I like, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I love dungeons in every game that I play, and that is a core part of their game. I mean, that is the most accessible, like, really, like, multiplayer content of their game. I feel like more accessible than raids and more accessible than PvP. And you don't need a group to do story content, and it just is completely not functioning. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a
That's
major issue.
Pretty bad.
You know?
Major, especially after 6 years.
Yeah. So I think that this is a game that like their housing system is excellent. They have a lot of really cool customization options. I think they can do a lot of really cool stuff with your gear and appearances and all that stuff. A lot of it is locked behind the cash shop, unfortunately. And you do get a lot of value out of having a subscription on top of like having the like paid expansions every couple of years that they do them. I don't know how often they release expansions, but like there's a lot that you get for paying real money in this game.
Yeah.
And for a game that, like, really to be experienced at its best, you have to have a paid subscription. And then on top of that, you should buy the expansions if you care about the story content. And then on top of that, there's going to be other stuff that you're going to want to spend real money on just for quality of life things to be able to experience a solid game, you know? Yeah, ESO Plus, like their subscription service. Like, to experience the game as it's intended to be realized. I mean, that's a pretty high barrier for entry for a game that they can't even be bothered to make their dungeon finder work properly.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, I think most of the love for that game just comes from the people that like the Elder Scrolls universe, and I think that's worth purchasing that stuff for a lot of people, I think. But like,
Yeah.
if
I mean,
they can't back it up, like, I think most people probably get suckered into it, don't do too much research on it, buy the game, and then they get into it and they're like, oh man, this is kind of scuffed. Like,
Yeah, I think it could have benefited a little bit more than if it would have. I mean, I guess it still kind of is a little bit open world, but not nearly as much as what you're used to from an Elder Scrolls game.
yeah.
Imagine ESO was Star Wars Galaxy in an Elder Scrolls universe.
No kidding. No
see,
kidding.
yeah, that would be dope.
With
Just take all of their systems,
combat professions, and all
Yeah.
that social part of it, instead of just funneling you into the storyline and the dungeons and everything.
with essentially the monetization of a mobile game. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
realistically.
it never felt like fully realized to me. Like it I feel like they were just trying to make an MMO out of it, and they just took like the most like rudimentary knowledge of it and made
Yeah.
it, and then like slapped an Elder Scroll skin on it and called it a day. Like that's how I felt about it.
That's what I feel. Look, when it first got announced, I feel like everyone was super excited because, like, me and my group of friends, like when they said it, I was like, okay, Skyrim with people.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
want like someone trying to kill WoW again.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna do it. Like,
We want you to do what you already do well. Just let us do it with our friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Create a multiplayer open world RPG. It
Yeah.
would
Going
have
back into the
popped
whole
off.
thing about making memories with your friends in games, like that's so
Yep.
important, especially to this genre right here. Like, yeah, man.
But
Totally, I
but to
get
be
you.
clear, okay, not Fallout 76 either, okay? Just
Yeah,
because
no.
that's too far the other direction. You got to keep it centered a little bit. Don't make
They'll
it
get
a
it right
terrible
eventually.
like survival game, okay? But like I remember like playing Skyrim for the 17th time or whatever after buying it for the 5th time, and I remember like going and exploring the world and going through the caves and finding unique items and being like, man, I wish I could do this with friends, you know? And like, I think I would love so much for them to take another crack at this at some point, or for probably literally any other developer to take another crack at this at some point, because they have had so long to fix it, and they're just kind of resting on their laurels, like being like, nah, that's good enough for us. People still spend money in the cash shop, and we'll call it a day. And like, I think that the Elder Scrolls universe is one that has such a deep lore and such an incredible story and so many fantastic environments and locations and unique items and races and like class archetypes and things that you can build into, and so much freedom of choice that I would love to see something in this universe. But Elder Scrolls Online just ain't it, Chief.
Yeah,
It's just
totally.
not, you know?
Chief called and he said it is not it.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, and this is one that I did play a little bit more. Final Fantasy 14. This is one of the I mean, I'm calling these four that we're talking about the big four essentially, but this is, I would say, the second biggest MMORPG. Out of like the ones that are currently available. I don't like have the numbers to prove that or anything, but just like speaking to popularity, people I talk to, Reddit, all that stuff, forums that I visit, gaming sites, all that stuff. I mean, this is the one that I hear the second most about after World of Warcraft. And it came out September 30th, 2010, had a very terrible launch, and then eventually relaunched into Final Fantasy 14: A Realm Reborn. And I feel like even as much as I didn't particularly enjoy this game because it does have slower combat than World of Warcraft. It's got a long global cooldown after each ability, and they have it set up that way for a reason. It is like ingrained into the design of the game. It does kind of slow down the gameplay a little bit, make it so that you can focus more on like other things that are happening like during combat and stuff like that, I guess, and to kind of like be able to balance it well and make sure everything's like, I guess, more neat than like Elder Scrolls, where people are just weapon swapping and spamming abilities constantly. So like I get why they took it that direction, but it does feel slow coming from WoW. And then on top of that, like it has just an incredibly long main story quest, and the first like 50 levels of the game, at least in my opinion, was incredibly boring, even trying to understand the lore and the story. I love Final Fantasy games. I could not stomach the story. I got to level 35 and I was like, I've had enough. I cannot keep waiting for this to get good. So, yeah. I mean, have either of you played this?
I haven't tried it yet, but I've always been really interested in it. I think I still want to at some point, but until then, I don't have much of an opinion on it. Objectively, it looks pretty cool. Like something that it looks cool enough for me to want to play.
Yeah.
But I don't know like the logistics or how it runs, how it plays, nothing like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you tried this one, Grynth, at all? Did you ever try Final Fantasy 14?
No.
No, okay.
The only little random tidbit of information I have about that is that when the World First limit guild from WoW, when they're bored enough, they'll go play Final Fantasy and basically take World First there.
Oh, well, fun fact. There you go. And like, I look at this game and it's a game that everyone tells me the like expansion content for the game, the story in that is incredible, but in order to understand that story, you have to play through the main story content. And I guess that you could watch a playthrough of the vanilla story if you wanted to, but I mean, that's a however many hours long video that you gotta like sit down and watch on YouTube and actually follow along with and pay attention to understand the relevant storytelling later. And for me, like the most interesting thing about this game, it has nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do with the gameplay outside of the class system. I absolutely love and adore the class system in this game. The fact that I can make one character and then just like click a different job to be and be that job and go start doing the quest to level up that job, and I can be that job. And like, so if I'm playing a monk, but all of a sudden I want to play a warrior instead, I just click warrior and then I'm a warrior. Or I want to be black mage and then I click black mage and I'm black mage, you know, or white mage and then I'm, you know, click that and I'm white mage. And you can just like do all of that on your main character. You know, I would say, what's up?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. My question's a little.
No, I mean, I would say it's the most alt friendly like MMORPG experience that you can have, in that you don't have to make another alt in order to experience all of the other classes. And I think it's great.
I like that a lot. That's what game was it we were talking about earlier that had the dual class?
Guild Wars 1.
Guild Wars. That sounds really cool. I really like that. It sounds like it's got a similar thing going on, kind of.
Yeah.
But how many class? Is it like the traditional Final Fantasy classes, like mage, warrior? Do you have like thief and stuff like that?
So there are actually a lot. So you have base classes and then jobs, which are kind of like subclasses in each one. So your starting ones, you're starting out Gladiator, Marauder, Pugilist, Lancer, Rogue, Archer, Thaumaturge, Arcanist, and Conjurer. And then like that breaks down into Paladin, Warrior, Monk, Dragoon, Ninja, Bard, Black Mage, Summoner, Scholar, White Mage, Blue Mage, Dark Knight, Astrologian, Machinist, Samurai, Red Mage, Gunbreaker, and Dancer. And I believe there might be more than that, but I mean, that's just like quick Google search to have all that info. So you start out as like the base 10 or so, and then you can evolve into those. I think when you hit like level 30-ish, somewhere around there, you get to like evolve your class and pick another route to go down. But at any time, you can just pick. You know, so if you start out as an Arcanist and you're a magic user and you're not feeling it, you go, I want to be a Gladiator instead. And then you're a Gladiator. And then you can just keep playing. And I mean, if you go all the way through all the story content and then you hit max level and you decide, hey, I don't like how max level Ninja plays. I don't enjoy this. I want to try Monk, you know? you go start trying monk. You don't have to replay through all the story content. You don't have to go through all that shenanigans again. You just swap to monk and you start doing it. And I think that is absolutely incredible. And as someone who is
totally.
an altaholic and struggles to decide on a main character all the time, I usually switch mains in World of Warcraft 7 to 10 times over the course of an expansion, which in World of Warcraft, which is the last 2 expansions, been incredibly not alt-friendly. The amount of things you have to do. I mean, this would be incredibly refreshing for me to be able to take my character and be like, you know what, Druid, now you're a hunter because, Druids are not as good right now, or I want to play a hunter instead. I want to be ranged instead of melee DPS, or I want to be a mage so that I can cast spells. And I think that this is easily one of the best class systems in any of the MMORPGs available. Just being able to swap freely like that. I think it's excellent. As much as I don't enjoy the base game, I think it's fantastic.
That alone sounds very intriguing. Makes me want to try it more.
Yeah, it's neat, but it's like because I'm trying to the way that I see it compared to WoW, it's so if it was in the terms of WoW, instead of a class you pick a race and then your job would be your class in WoW. But then it wouldn't make sense in WoW for those to be interchangeable, except for some of them. It's like, how could you not be a warrior and a hunter at the same time? It's literally a matter of picking a different weapon up and training with it. But that's beside the point of that. But so it makes more sense. The way that they classified everything in Final Fantasy makes that why it's actually possible. To be able to
that's cool.
You have your character and then it's labeled as a job. It's like you can pick up a different job. I'm not a McDonald's fry cook anymore. I can be a
Burger King fry cook.
Exactly.
And you can go and you can use the skill set somewhere else. And I strongly agree. I don't think it's something that would work in World of Warcraft by any means. I wish that they had a little bit more flexibility with alts, and this new expansion hopefully is leaning a little more that direction. But still, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be pretty alt unfriendly.
It's the new leveling system is
great.
It helps a lot.
And that's the other thing that made the leveling so hard for me in Final Fantasy XIV. Even making a new character on World of Warcraft and leveling it up from level 1 to 120 before the most recent level Squish, which cut the time down. You can level a character from 1 to 50, which is the new max level. And I would say playing casually, 6 to 12 hours, depending on what content you choose and where you're going. If you're really pumping and you're following a specific route and you know the optimal way to do it, someone just did it in 3 hours and 33 minutes. I believe it happened last week.
10 to 50 in 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're saying casually 6 to 12 hours? No.
You don't think so?
12 the minimum.
Oh, okay. Got you. Let's see. So I guess I would be a little more than a casual player. Fair enough. Yeah. So 12 to 24.
I did my recent one in 8 hours and 9 minutes, and that's with stacking XP buffs and following the original route that guy did. But the route that I followed was his that he did as a Volpera in 5 hours and 55 minutes, I think is what he ended.
Yeah.
So I was still way over, but there was a lot of stuff that he did that I had to spend time taking flight paths and stuff to do. Yeah. So he played a Volpera, so he would, when he needed to go get his increased flight speed or whatever, it was a loading screen away. Where mine was, okay, Hearth here, go here, get this XP buff, run out, flight path, portal, and then finally get back to where I'm supposed to go. So casually, he had a lot of shortcuts. Casually,
we'd be looking at 10 to 20 hours for World of Warcraft, essentially.
Yeah, because what was the one that I did? The other one that I did was a lot more what I thought the leveling system was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So the way that he gets into it is super or the new leveling system is intended for you to do, okay, you do 1 to 10 in this new zone, and that's a tutorial zone, and then you pick an expansion and you go 10 to 50.
Yeah.
And it can be done that way. But it's obviously not 100% optimal to do it that way because there are certain zones or whatever that are just insane. 10 to 15, you just do the intro to Warlords of Draenor.
Oh. Wow.
It's such a dense quest hub of doing that intro that it's the most efficient 5 levels that you can get right now. And then Silver Pine Forest, and then take that into Arathi Highlands, and then you go back to Warlords.
But I'm talking
So
like
it's a lot of jumping.
specifically for someone who's a new player. I think you have to go in and play the most recent expansion if it's your first time, right? You go straight into Battle for Azeroth after level 10.
Not anymore.
No, they did open it up for
though.
everything. Oh, okay. I thought for
Yeah,
new,
well,
I thought for
that's
brand
the
new
whole
players
system.
they had to play through the Battle for Azeroth campaign their first time.
No, it's all Chromie time.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay.
You go to Exile's Reach and do that, and then you come out. And if you don't go to Chromie, it is.
Oh, it is straight there. Okay, but you can choose to go somewhere else.
But I don't know if you can go 10 to 50 with just BFA.
I did.
I don't. You did? Okay.
I did.
I haven't tried it because
I actually
sick of it.
I made it halfway through the second zone. It took me about 10 hours and 30 minutes. Yeah.
Holy crap!
10 hours?
That's nuts.
Yeah, I did it in about 10 hours.
I chose Legion, and it took me 14 hours, I think.
Yeah.
But I also had to leave Legion at one point because the zone was so laggy that I just wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
I could go anywhere else and enjoy at least playing the game from a like mechanical like standpoint instead of I pressed my thing and now 2 seconds later it happens.
Yeah.
But the new leveling system is intended for you to just like
it's very
like I said,
streamlined.
You did it. You can just go 10 to 50. Just go to the new whatever the current stuff is and just go.
Yeah.
But you have options because like it does get stale. Like if you're leveling a lot, it get super stale to do the same quests over and over again. And then you're like, it gives you options. It's like, okay, let's go do Panda. Let's go to Mr. Pandaria for this character.
And my point in bringing this up specifically is to compare that to Final Fantasy XIV, where it gets stale in about the first like 15 levels of leveling story-wise, realistically. And then on top of that, you're not even close to max level. You're not even close to finishing the story content from the original release of the game. I probably have, I can check my Steam to see if it'll tell me how many hours I have in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm pretty sure I've only played it on here, but I'm curious to know like how many it is because like I just know I stopped at level 35 and like playing through this, I've played 46.6 hours. I got to level 30, it might have been 36 on my monk, okay? And I did not complete the main story quests in 46.6 hours. I made one alternate character on another server who got to level 18. Okay? And obviously some of this was spent exploring and like watching cutscenes, all that stuff, which is a little bit more than World of Warcraft because most of theirs is just, take this quest, go here. But I mean, 45 hours compared to like, let's say casually you're taking 20 to 30 hours to level up if you're a new player and don't understand in World of Warcraft, Like, you are at max level experiencing all the stuff that there is to experience. You're going straight into the new expansion content in 2 weeks when that releases after, 20 to 30 hours of game time versus 45 hours of Final Fantasy because I made one alt. Like, and I still haven't even reached the first expansion worth of content, and I have already lost interest, And it is not, like, fun or interesting, and the combat is not, like, fluid or snappy enough to keep me there for that, Like, and the dungeons and raids look absolutely incredible at the max level. I think they look really fun, They don't look like the most challenging things ever, but they look really fun. And, like, something I would want to do with my love for dungeons, But realizing that I have that much work ahead of me in order to eventually get there someday, and, like, I did a few of the low-level dungeons, and that was probably the most fun I had in that game. Was doing some of the low-level dungeons and just running through that and playing the class that I was playing. I was playing Monk, and then I also did a little bit of Black Mage on the same character. And like, it was very fun doing the dungeons, but again, like, it takes that long to get through the main story, and I think it's too long. And they shortened it by like 30% apparently in a recent patch. I think they said it was between 30 and 40% shorter. Like sometime in the last 6 months they shortened it, and that is still not nearly short enough. I mean, because like you take even half the time. From my playtime, you're looking at like 23 hours to hit like not even halfway to max level. I mean, it's too long.
I want to try it out still.
And you should.
I think I might. What's the do you have to pay for that game?
Yeah.
Subscription base?
You buy the DLC, I think if you buy Shadowbringers, I don't know if you have to buy the base game or not off the top of my head. You might have to. Usually they do a bundle for like $40. It's the base game and Shadowbringers. It's the complete edition. It goes on sale every now and then a monthly sub on top of that. The first time you buy it, you get a month free.
Okay, cool.
Shoryu in chat just said free trial until Heaven's Sword at level 60. Yeah, so apparently they did introduce a new free trial system. When I played, that's how it was. So
hey,
yeah. So I would recommend trying it.
Free trial.
you know,
Yeah.
just to give it a go and see if you like it. And a lot of people I know swear by this game. I mean, they love it. You know, I hear people swear up and down by Final Fantasy 14. They say it's their favorite MMO. They love it. They love all the customization options. They love all the fashion inside of the game. They love the dungeons. They love the stories of the expansions. They love all the like Final Fantasy lore that they get to experience, and cool. But
I hear a lot about that game.
yeah. But like, just because of the new player experience specifically, with how many other games I have to play, you know, like it's hard for me to warrant investing the time it will take me to get to that point, you know, especially because I'm not having fun right now where I'm at in that game. The second that I stopped having fun, I was like, I will give this a little bit longer and try, and if it doesn't improve drastically soon, I am not going to waste my time, you know? And like, there's level boosts and things like that, but like, I don't know enough about the game to confidently boost my character and know that I'll be able to play and understand what's going on well enough that I would want to do that, because I feel like it would ruin the experience for me and for the people I'm playing with to just get up there and be ignorant, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have to do that to be able to experience the game as it's intended to be experienced, you know?
True. Yeah, I see it.
So
Totally, I get you.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to try it.
yeah, you definitely should.
Get
Again,
back-
I
get back
recommend
to
it to everybody, and I hope you enjoy it, but I could not. Yeah. Grynth, looking at something like Final Fantasy 14, is there anything that could incentivize you to play this game? I mean, realistically,
No.
you already have WoW,
No,
right?
It's that, you know, and it doesn't make. I saw that in chat they said it's a contender for the throne, which made me go to look up some data. And it's like there are so many things that they say it's a contender for the throne from WoW, and it's just not even remotely close. They have a massive number of players or characters that are created, but they only have 650,000 active players.
Got it. Okay.
We have 120,000 on one European server on WoW. Active
Wow.
players.
That's crazy.
So the contender for the throne stuff, like let's toss that phrase out the window here.
Yeah.
And calm
Yeah.
down.
I
It's
would
neat, and it plays
It's
a
neat.
lot more into the character customization stuff. There's a
Yeah.
guy out from WoW that I watch his stream, and his wallpaper on his desktop for whatever is a big close-up screenshot of his Final Fantasy character,
Yeah.
and it is the ugliest looking thing that I've ever seen in my life, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like it's one of
Yeah.
those. I don't know any names of stuff. They're like tiny little characters, but it has a giant fluffy mullet and a mutton stash. And just the weirdest color combo you could think of.
Sounds fly to me.
But so
Jeez.
that's really cool. Like I like games that give you options.
Yeah.
And which is like WoW, they're slowly rolling out a lot of character customization stuff.
Yeah.
But like cuz like the way that I have my character set up now, it's insane. Like they just look so much better now than they did in the past.
Absolutely.
But
yeah. And again, for anyone who hasn't tried Final Fantasy 14 and likes MMOs, I think you should. It might click for you, and just because it didn't click for me doesn't mean it won't click for anybody else. And like I would strongly agree with the fact that like there isn't really a contender for the throne at this point. There's just games that I would say are also successful, which I consider to be a big deal in the MMO landscape. When an MMORPG is successful in today's day and age, where really there isn't a lot of space for new MMOs. Looking at you, New World. Come on, Amazon. But moving on to the next one, Guild Wars 2, and this is one that I am just now getting into and really discovering for myself, and I absolutely love it and could not be more of an advocate for this. I would say if you are looking for a game to play for like as a free-to-play game, I think this is one of the best options on the market, if not the best option on the market.
that is 100%
the best option. Yeah. Yeah, I think that it has the most fair business model. You can earn paid currency in game with gold. So even like the Living World story seasons that they release, which if you are online in the game when a new one comes out, which is like their seasonal content update, you get it for free. The only ones that you have to pay for are the ones that already came out. So anyone that's released from here on out, all you have to do is be logged in and you'll get it. They do release paid expansions, so you'll need to pick those up. But like even those were on sale for like $15, I think. And the amount of content that you get for them is massive. It's huge.
Yeah. Because I see, like most MMOs that are like basically in that whole stretch of like WildStar, Star Wars, all those things that ended up with some sort of free to play model. Those are the ones, and they're super greedy with how they do it. It's like you can still sub to those games, and get some extra stuff, but it's not worth it. They should literally just be like, okay, if they're gonna keep going on with it at all, Guild Wars is the model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, make an expansion if it's good enough. Like if people see what content's there and it's good enough, they're gonna buy it.
Absolutely.
But feeling like or because it's like Star Wars is the one that's that when I did it, it was so awful, and I had like a backlog of free rewards for
Mhm.
having a physical authenticator on my account, which was neat. But it's like it's so bad. How much content they lock you out of just because you're not gonna sub. The content's not worth subbing for, but they're locking it out for you just not doing it. It's just like, okay, well, how to kill your game 101.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
like if you're
grimy.
gonna go free to play, you change how you fund that game completely. And
Yeah.
Guild Wars has done it since Guild Wars Prophecies successfully. You
Absolutely.
pay, it's literally you buy an expansion, you're good to go. You
Yeah.
play that.
So
Sounds cool.
and one thing to mention that Wyvern actually pointed out that is correct that I was a little confused on, because I bought the expansions actually before I like really got in and started playing the game, just because they were cheap and it was an impulse, and because that's what I do. I impulsively purchase things just out of whim. So to be clear, for only free players who have never spent any money on the game, you have access to turning your gem currency into gold, but you don't have access to turning your gold into gems. But just purchasing the expansion, I believe, is enough to unlock that for you, so you can buy gold or buy gems, which is the in-game cash shop currency, with gold, which is in-game currency. So that way, if you get the expansions, you can purchase the Living World seasons that you missed with just your in-game gold. You don't even need to like shell out any more money on the game. Any cosmetic stuff that comes into the store, if you farm enough gold in-game, you can get the gems, and then you can buy that in-game. Anything that's like a quality of life item, you can get with in-game gold. All that stuff. I think it's an excellent model. I think it's incredibly fair. And then on top of that, their prices are also really fair, in my opinion. I don't think that I've seen anything that I looked at and I was like, that is way too expensive for what I'm getting. Versus something like Elder Scrolls Online, where you look at one of their bundles, and one of their bundles is costing you like $40. An equivalent bundle in Guild Wars would cost you like $20, you know? And it's like, I think that they have the most interesting combat of any MMO outside of World of Warcraft that I played. I think it's incredibly fluid. They have a weapon swap system that has a cooldown when you're in combat, so that way it's not just spammy like Elder Scrolls Online, where everyone's just throwing all of their abilities all the time, and it's a mess, and it's like completely terrible. It's not pay to win. You can't buy any like competitive advantage over other people like in combat, you know, when you're talking about PvP. They have an incredibly unique PvP system, looking at like the 5 versus 5, and then on top of that, the world versus world PvP, which are like massive battles, and you can have like siege weapons and stuff like that you can take with you into combat. And I think it's fantastic. I think it's honestly like, if you're not playing World of Warcraft and you're looking for an MMO, you should try Guild Wars 2. The entire game is free up to level 80 anyways, which is like everything leading up to the expansion content, and there is a full story for each of the races that you can choose. And like there is so much, and it's like a good enough story that I wasn't bored like I was in Final Fantasy 14. Even the main story part of it. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of interesting and compelling lore in there, and like it's all voice acted, and it's great. I think that if you haven't played it, you should play it. I mean, that is my take on Guild Wars 2.
I've been watching you play it on stream every morning, and it's kind of been giving me an itch to play it, man. It looks really good, and hearing these points about the like the way to get into the game doesn't sound too bad. It's very nice business model. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. I would say
so. It's like,
go ahead.
I wish WoW would like because I'm sitting there thinking I don't remember, I cannot think for the life of me what game it was, but they had a sub fee for the game, but you didn't have to buy the expansions if you paid the sub fee.
I think that
So like
was
I guess that's
Elder Scrolls Online, but you still
Was
had
that
to
you
buy
said?
the newest expansion.
Yeah, because I
They
when I
included
bought
the
that
older
game-
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
all the expansions when I bought the sub for it that one time, and then, but I still had to buy whatever was the newest expansion.
Yeah. So
Which
even
wasn't
that's
kinda
okay.
cool.
'cause I was gonna
Yeah.
say I was
You're
like,
still 2
not
years
too bad.
behind.
yeah, I was like if it because it's like we have Guild Wars, you buy you're like I guess you bought the base game, you're good. You buy
And
an
you don't even have to
expansion when
buy
new
the base
stuff comes
game
out,
now.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like as they get further along into it, because it's like even with WoW, like if you get the like you just play on a starter edition account, I think even that includes like Legion at this
You
point.
go all
Yeah.
the way to Legion now,
Yeah,
yeah.
right
Yeah, it's
now,
crazy.
just paying the sub, you get
Um,
10 to 50. Everything up through
yeah,
Battle for
so-
Azeroth actually
Okay.
is now
Crazy.
included. Yeah.
But yeah, the just buying an expansion and playing is pretty It's pretty good.
Yeah,
Just
it's
to be able to
it's
play it,
very
and
good.
It's always been that way. They've
Yeah.
never had anything come up that they needed to completely change the way that they monetize their game.
Yeah. And looking specifically at the fact that like there's 2 expansions out for the game, a third one coming out next year, unless it gets delayed. It's been announced for next year at this point. But you buy the most recent expansion currently, you get the one before it. Whenever the new one comes out next year, if you buy that expansion, you will get the 2 expansions before that. So you're not, having to buy 3 expansions either. As long as you buy the most recent expansion for Guild Wars 2, you get the ones before it. And I think that that's excellent. Again, I will make this statement and stand by it. I think Guild Wars 2 is probably the best, the easiest to gain access to as a new player, the easiest to start out in and pick up and start playing and get into the content. It has the lowest barrier for entry out of any other MMORPG at this point. I would say it's World of Warcraft with their new updates and stuff like that. They're very new player friendly, and I think they're on the right track. But the max level is so there are so many systems. Like, speaking to Battle for Azeroth specifically, there is so much that you have to do when you hit max level that is so confusing to a new player looking at it. It's bad.
Yeah, Battle for Azeroth is it's like, for me, I can't put it under WoD, but all the world first raiders and stuff, they will consistently, he said, the one dude, the Max or whatever, he's the raid leader for World First Guild. He was like, if you think this expansion was worse than WoD, you're delusional. And I'm just like, really? Because I didn't play WoD, so it's like I don't have the experience to say. I just kind of put up with all the bullshit that was in Battle for Azeroth, and it was a lot. But I played through it.
So I played in WoD, and I can say that WoD was really freaking bad, man. It was not fun out. I think I quit during that experience. That was the last time I was really into WoW. I play on and off here and there now, but that was ever since that expansion, I haven't been very consistent. It kind of killed it for me.
Yeah, no, which is sad because Legion was actually sick. Okay,
the
first part of the beginning of Legion was actually kind of bad.
So what I usually get the expansions when they come out, and then I'll cap my character out, and then I'll play a little bit of the end game stuff, and then I move on. But
You've met me, and you've met Vince now.
Yeah.
Prepare for Shadowlands.
I know, yeah. Me and Vince we had a big old conversation about Shadowlands one night, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and speaking specifically to the comparison of Warlords of Draenor, which is WoD, to anyone who doesn't know, it was the World of Warcraft expansion before Legion. So in 2 weeks, it'll be 4 expansions ago, I believe, but right now it's 3 expansions ago, including the current one that we're on.
That long, dude.
And I would say that patch 6.1 for Warlords of Draenor was the worst patch I have ever seen as a major content patch in the history of video games. Their flagship, their big deal, the main thing that they were exciting and hyping people up about for this patch was the selfie camera that was a toy that you could hold up and take screenshots of your own character in World of Warcraft like you were holding a cell phone. And that was their major feature that they touted for that entire patch. The first major content release of a whole expansion. And they were like, you can take a selfie of your character. Here you go, guys. See you in 8 months when we release more content, or don't.
And Blizzard, they always know.
Battle for Azeroth, the current World of Warcraft expansion will never be worse than Warlords of Draenor. If you think differently, you're wrong, and I'm sorry. This is fact, not opinion.
From a lore standpoint, too, WoD was just ridiculous. It was just this time paradox bullcrap when
sort of. But we didn't ever have those assets to use in the storyline in World of Warcraft. They were given a silver platter of good lore to work with.
It was
and they
wonderful.
Killed off one of the war chiefs as the first boss of the first raid.
Wow.
And at that point, they shot the expansion in the head and moved on to Legion.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was horrible.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, just a myriad of terrible decisions.
Were a massive deal, and they
did it poorly.
There's one. Here's another one.
Later,
right?
Later, nerd. Get out of here.
They had so much content potential with the whole Draenor area and all. I've read books about it, man. There's so much stuff they could have done with that zone, and they just didn't do it, or if they did do it, it was very like bare bones and just
Yeah.
Yeah.
not what it should have been. I don't know. But
Absolutely.
Battle for Azeroth, my issue with that one is like I was expecting to go into it like fighting the your respective opponent, whatever faction you're on, I like the whole expansion, and then I ended up pretty much doing a quest line the whole time that got me to 120 where I was just like trying to help out some trolls and I hit cap like halfway into that and I was just over it. Like it just didn't hit that lore spot for me. I didn't like it.
It
Yeah.
was very like post level cap was the whole war story for the most part. It's like
Yeah.
while you're leveling, you had like you could go to their continent and establish your footholds and stuff, but there was it was 8.2. Was it the second? Yeah, or no. I don't even remember what patch it was. I don't know. Second actual raid, Battle of Dazar'alor, or Battle for Dazar'alor. I don't know which one of the wording or whatever.
Battle
This was
Dazar'alor.
actually Battle Dazar'alor.
Yes.
100% in my opinion, one of the best raids they've ever made.
Yeah.
And it was a faction fighting thing. So like you would
That's cool. That's what I wanted.
yeah, it was really good. And it also there was a unique mechanic that happened in it. I'll try to explain it as quickly as I go through it. But it's like if you're Horde, you go through and you fight like these paladin bosses, and then you fight this giant monkey, and then you fight which you fight and kill it, and then Bwansamdi is the Loa of Death. He resurrects it as an undead, which the Alliance fights.
Oh.
Which is cool. But it's the same mechanics or whatever that it does, but with so like when we fought it, it was technically like a bit of a Met gorilla, sort of, or like it's like there's a gnome quest line that enhances its brain or whatever. But and then you fight some mechs and the gorilla, and then when they fight it, they fight this zombie gorilla and other beings that one zombie can summon. And then you go and fight like a mage and a monk. It's the same for both, but it's not. It's the Horde fights Alliance characters and vice versa, and then it goes into the split story. And so at that point, as Horde, you become Alliance members, and you go through some weird bosses that don't really have anything to do. Or there's one that's just kind of like a gold vault, almost like just the mid raid boss fight. It's cool, but like okay, it's like what's the point? And then you fight the Conclave of the Chosen, which is a bunch of Zandalari like higher up kind of. And then you kill King Rostakon. You kill the king as the Alliance, even if you're a Horde player.
Just so that both sides can experience the story as it was told. Yeah.
And then you go outside and you go back into Horde and you fight Mekatork, the leader of the gnomes.
Yeah.
And he flies off he ejects out of his mech suit at the end and doesn't die, of course. We had to lose our freaking king, but he gets to fly away. Not salty. And then they summon up this giant Tidestorm elemental at the docks, and you have to fight that thing, and then you fight Jaina as the Horde. But so Alliance does theirs. They do 6 bosses straight as Alliance, and then they turn into the Horde and fight Mekatork, the Tidestorm, and Jaina, just to see that story.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think it's very creative
really
way of doing
it. I like that
mechanic of that raid, and it 100% is one of the best they've ever made. It's really good.
Oh, that's rad. Super unique.
So the last game that we were going to talk about after Guild Wars was Black Desert Online. We don't have like a whole lot of time to go into it because this episode is already running longer than like our standard episodes would. I mean, like I said, we had a lot to talk about and we all have a lot to say about MMO games. But Black Desert Online, it's a game that has kind of taken the world by storm. They just released a mobile version of the game. It's incredibly grindy, incredibly RNG based. There's a lot of comments to say that the game is pay to win and things like that. But at the same time, on top of all of this, it has an incredible combat system. The action combat in this game is very fluid. It's combo based. I think it's super fun, incredibly flashy. All of the characters feel and play uniquely and interestingly. I don't know have either of you played Black Desert Online or given it a try in any capacity?
A while ago.
I watched Lassus stream it a little bit. That's about it.
You played it a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of the most entertaining games to watch the combat for about, I would say 30 minutes to an hour. And then you get bored because they're just killing the same creature over and over again, farming materials. And I know that this... What's up?
I have a pet peeve about that game. The fact that when you go to like the cities and everyone can like leave their mounts around everywhere.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it's just like this ugly, dense mess of just like camels and horses and every other creature with
Oh,
four legs.
when you dismount, it just sits there.
Yeah, I hate it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially, it's like
Which one's mine?
it's like being transported from a game like Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six Siege that's incredibly well optimized, and you have 144 frames, and then you just get dumped into like Anthem, where you're out here with like a
nowhere.
with a
Anthem-
1080 Ti.
Anthem Social Space?
Yeah, Anthem Social Space with your like i7 what's 7700K back then when it came out. Might have been the 8700K when it came out, and like a 1080 Ti, and you're getting like 30 FPS in the social space. That's like walking into a town in Black Desert. It's like your entire PC just buckles at the strain of all of the polygons it has to render.
There's an insane amount of people that leave their like it. It's crazy. There's like more mounts than players, and there was like when I was playing, there was a pretty good amount of people like hanging around this little town I was in. So I was like, man, this is kind of ugly. I don't like
Yeah.
that at all.
That could probably be mitigated a little bit if they kind of took the Destiny system of like, what do they cap the tower to, like 24 players or something like that?
I would say it's somewhere
If they cap
between
the
16
cities
and
to,
24.
like, just like 30 players, so that
Yeah.
you can, at most there's 30 camels
Yeah.
sitting around. Like,
That game is just like it has no instances, does it? Like it's just all one.
To my knowledge, the end game is grinding mobs. There might
Yeah.
be some instance content or like world bosses, but I mean the majority of your game will be spent on either like fashion stuff, role playing, or like grinding. Just hard grinding. Yeah.
hold on, back up. Role playing? What?
Yes, role playing. Yeah. There is a
Would
pretty
rather
big.
be at Moonguard.
There is, yeah, no
Yep.
kidding. There is a pretty big like
Wow.
RP scene for Black Desert apparently. But like this is a game specifically that doesn't appeal to me because again, I love instance content, I love dungeon content. I think that with the combat system it has and how good it looks graphically, realistically, if you took this game, removed the enhancement system where it's essentially like almost causing every single person to have like a gambling addiction inside of the game with your percentage chance to upgrade your gear or not upgrade your gear, and it gets better the more enhancement cores you use and all that stuff. Yeah, Warforging and WoW. Yeah, good call back there. And like it's really designed to hook you on the game and entice you to spend real money because it is a free to play game, and I understand that that's a core part of it. But I maintain that if you took those systems out and just kept the core like gameplay, the fun combat, the flashy moves, the graphics looking as good as they do, the fast like action oriented combat, I've been like hungering so badly for an MMO with that style of combat, but with like World of Warcraft's dungeon and raid system and like their gear progression that you feel in that game. I think that tab targeting in WoW is absolutely incredible and fluid and works well and should stay exactly the way that it is, but I would love a game that was World of Warcraft with action combat. So
Yeah,
I would thoroughly
that'd be
enjoy
dope.
something like that. And I was hoping Black Desert would be that, and it's not, and that makes me sad. They are coming out with Crimson Desert at some point. I believe is the title of the game. It might be like in, what's the word? In limbo right now, as far as whether or not that's actually going to be the name, but that's what they're calling it to my knowledge. And that's supposed to be releasing sometime in the next 10 years. And
Violet Desert.
Yeah, I say the next 10 years because I imagine it'll be out by that point, or the studio will probably shut down from all the money that they're throwing out the window, trying to get a game released that is terrible and not going to work. So
Royal Blue Desert.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, some other like strange color of desert. And I really want it to be more of a traditional MMORPG, but I doubt they will go that way just because of how much money they've made off of Black Desert, and even more now that it's on mobile. So they have the entire mobile crowd who's already willing to just spend crazy money on microtransactions like it's nothing, So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think that they're going to make anything that's something I want to play in my lifetime at any point. But I would love to be pleasantly surprised.
I agree.
So
That'd be cool. Waiting for Crimson Desert.
obviously World of Warcraft would be the last game on our list, but we've kind of discussed World of Warcraft as like the reference point for every other MMO that we talked about. Before we move on to the opinion section specifically, is there anything about World of Warcraft that either of you want to mention or highlight or anything like that that we didn't already talk about in the game?
I think I've said pretty much all I need to say about WoW until we get into the opinions, of course.
What about you,
I
Grynth?
just hate their little like A team, B team nonsense that they have going on.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like we had Warlords of Draenor, which was the worst. I mean, we don't think it's still the worst expansion
By far.
ever. But and then so that was B team, Legion, A team, rough start, very very good at the end.
Very good. Arguably the best.
Like, pretty dang good. And then B team comes back and gives us BFA. Garbage. Complete garbage. Ignored beta feedback 100%. Just delivered us a steaming pile of crap.
I believe it was roughly a year of people saying your system is not good and you need to make adjustments to it. Here's what you can do. And listed tons of options. And they said, no, we think we're going to stick with this. This looks good to us. And then they did. And it was terrible.
It's a game.
And now we have A team. Yeah. I was like, we've got A team again. Shadowlands.
Yeah. Hopefully it looks.
I'd say about 90% of it looks like it could potentially be the best expansion that we will have.
Yeah.
The other 10% is the Covenant system.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
And we've seen them making some changes even now. They're not budging completely on the Covenant system, which, for those of you who don't know, basically you choose a Covenant. Once you hit max level in that expansion, when it releases in 2 weeks, you pick a Covenant and then you're locked into that Covenant choice, and then it'll take you 2 weeks or so, I think, like if you want to change Covenants. And there are specific class abilities that are not evenly balanced that tie into what choice you make. And you get different abilities based on what Covenant you choose, based on what class you are. So each class is going to have a best Covenant for them, but that might not be the one that you like aesthetically, or that gives you a mount that you like, or an armor set that you like. So if you're playing because you really like this Covenant over here, but this Covenant over here is your best one, you know, or that one over there is your best one, I should say, you know, you're basically handicapping yourself and the other people you're playing with by deciding to go with your worst Covenant because it's what you like. And a lot of people think that's not a good system. But it,
more meta slaving, dude.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
But it's also, they're nerfing the crap out of them to the point where the actual Covenant abilities aren't even the reason you make that choice anymore. It's the soul binds.
Yeah.
The soul binds are still really strong. And so that's what you're kind of targeting at this point. But it's just new systems. There's always like 2 to 3 new systems they put, and then it's like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So
and
we have Covenant, we have, what is it, Covenants and Legendaries and
soul binds and conduits is what we're looking at, I think.
Oh yeah.
But like looking at those, like they are starting to ease up on the reins a little bit on that, and like I'm listening a lot more to feedback now than they did in Battle for Azeroth, and I'm very hopeful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's still not completely to say that they're like Covenants are going away and you can swap freely, which I think is how it should be, honestly. I understand that it is meant to be a meaningful choice, but sometimes in a game like World of Warcraft, where as much of the player base has a tendency to be that toxic and be that like group of meta slaves and require you to be this like a specific class and soon to be this specific Covenant in order to do the content that they need you to do. Like, I think that you need to have it be more flexible, just because like there are those people and you have to be able to plan for that as a developer. I mean, as much as I absolutely hate it, it is why skill-based matchmaking exists, because the new players who come into the game don't want to get pub stomped in every single game by the sweaty TTV boys, you know, who sit at home and they grind Call of Duty, like Battle Royale, Warzone, whatever it's called this week, like for, 10 hours a day. They don't want to get their teeth kicked in every single match. It won't be a fun experience for them. At some point, it becomes on the developer to look at their system and realize, hey, we need to open this up more because we know the player base and this is how it's going to go down.
Yeah, totally.
So we'll see if they do it. I'm expecting it's probably going to be the first major content patch. Is it going to be 10.1, Grynth? Is that, we're on 10, right? For the new expansion? 9. Okay, so it'll be 9.1.
9.0.2 now.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah, so whenever 9.1 hits, if they're going to do it, I would expect these Covenant system to be changed then, realistically. That's my assumption. I don't think it'll be by launch by any stretch of the imagination.
What do you think would be ideal for that? Like purely aesthetical and like lining up with your like ideology, I guess. Like, is that what you want?
I think,
just out of curiosity.
I have the answer for that. But...
Go for it. Give us the answer.
All right, 100%. If they put this in, there would be zero arguments. The ability. So basically, how the Covenants work is there is a mount. There's probably more than one mount. Honestly, there are armor sets based around the
themed around the Covenant. Yeah.
Yep. Your Covenant choice should 100% only be that.
Just cosmetic. No power.
And the abilities should be moved to basically how, like, literally just add an extra little thing at the bottom of our talent window, and you go, Kyrian, I'm raiding. Use a lot of tank things are tied to the Kyrian Covenant in like mitigation or damage for single target.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going Kyrian for raids. Okay, I'm doing dungeons. I'm gonna go Night Fae for dungeons because they have really good AoE. You literally just toggle it.
Yeah.
With no penalty that just needs to be there. And then what this is what I wish they would have done, because they delayed the expansion or whatever. They should have taken the time to implement that system and have their art team that literally hard carries the game to no end
Yeah.
change, like, so you have animations for these abilities that you do or whatever, but they should have went through and colored them based on the covenant that you actually picked.
Yeah, some kind of like art theme around your ability to suggest that this is so the Night Fae specifically are more like they are the nature boys, they are the druidic
Nature boys.
Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
they're very, leaves, trees, nature magic. That is Night Fae in a nutshell. Animals, all that stuff, like very Chronicles of Narnia forest, like
Yeah,
I mean,
like a moonlight plant aesthetic, because
Yeah.
it's all really bright blue and like white lights and stuff.
Yeah, so you take your
And
Kyrian
so,
ability,
yeah.
and then you just make it themed around the Night Fae, and you let anybody pick whatever ability they need, and you let the rest of it be cosmetic. I completely agree.
That's actually so smart. Like the fact that they they get paid to do this and don't like think of that kind of stuff is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, well,
That's genius.
and I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, and I think that the Covenant choice
Yeah.
like thing is cool in a nutshell, but I think they just took it a little bit too far, And like it's hard to know what is too far when you spend like 4 years of development time on an expansion, because I think it's been publicly announced that Blizzard works on expansions like 2 expansions in advance. They start working on ideas for an expansion. So like this came into fruition like at the end of Warlords of Draenor and at the start of Legion, essentially, is around the time when they started like theorizing all of this,
Yeah.
So like they have been working towards this for that long and have all these systems in place, and I wish it was as easy as just like flip a switch, put it in the UI, and call it a day, But realistically, I wish that they would use betas a lot more and I've said this on previous podcast episodes before, I wish they would use a beta as it's intended to be used, as a testing phase, not as a marketing tactic, and actually take feedback from their players, so that way they could direct it in a like path that everyone, like obviously not everyone will agree, but the vast majority of people will agree with, that will keep your options open for the most players possible and not shoehorn people into one kind of content. Because right now in World of Warcraft, we're seeing people discuss having multiple characters of the same race and class pick different covenants to be able to do different content. So you have to have, like, if you want to be really good at Fire Mage, you make a Fire Mage that goes, like, let's say, like, and this is just arbitrary here, I don't know what the best is for Fire Mage, Night Fae for dungeons, and then Kyrian for raids, And I have absolutely... What's that?
I was just gonna meme and say the best option for Fire Mage is respecking into one of the more useful specs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, fire is quite bad.
They straight up neutered them after rolling this entire patch that we had.
Yeah, Fire Mage was very good for very long, and now they're terrible. But like, and so you would have to basically have 2 Fire Mages at max level to be able to optimally play both types of content if you want to do even just dungeons and raiding, which are both PvE content. But the content is so different that you should be a different covenant according to the meta in order to do both content, like both types of content optimally. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I don't see how this didn't come up internally, as this is going to be an issue for people who don't just want to raid, or don't just want to do dungeons, or don't just want to PvP. Apparently they think everybody plays pet battles and they can just, choose covenants for, for cosmetic options only, and nobody actually cares about endgame content. I don't know. But yeah, just really still scratching my head on that one. Very excited for the new WoW expansion. But we are probably going to move into the opinion section here, just because I think we've talked a lot. Yeah. So just off the top, what is your favorite MMO? We'll start with you, Joker. What do you got? Favorite MMO ever?
World of Warcraft.
Grynth?
Easy.
World of Warcraft.
Same. Not even close. I mean, like, there's nothing in contention. I absolutely adore Guild Wars 2 right now. I am thoroughly enjoying it. If you don't play World of Warcraft, don't want to, have played it and gotten burnt out on it, try Guild Wars 2 if you have not. It is an incredible game. World of Warcraft will always be my favorite. I have played it every single year since it released in 2004. I was 10 years old at the time that it came out, and I have like never taken a break of more than 6 months.
Yeah,
I love World of Warcraft.
Foretell anything ever pulling my attention as an MMO more than WoW.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any upcoming MMO games that you're interested in? We'll start with you on this one, Grynth.
For me to like, there's none that I'm like, I'm gonna play that. But there are like our buddy Blake talks about Ashes of Creation all the time, and it's like there are stuff that sounds cool, but it's just like, especially now that I got my sub button in WoW, so like that's where I have to be pretty
Yeah.
much. Um, and that's another thing that I wish people would do. I wish that that Guild Wars and WoW would kind of get together and be like, "Hey, we're gonna release content for these months, and then you do it in these months."
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
so I could literally play WoW for 6 months and then play Guild Wars for 6 months.
While you wait
Play
for the
WoW
content
6
from the other game. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wish it was that way, but like, so if there was any Ashes, it sounds the most interesting to me.
Yeah. What about you,
I
Joker?
I actually agree. I was gonna say Ashes too. I've heard a little bit about that game. It sounds really cool. I like the whole like building your, because that's another one where you're like founding your own kind of city too, right? Like
Oh
you're
Yeah.
yeah,
building up
yeah,
from the ground
exactly.
up, a whole
That's
server
fucking
from the ground
nuts.
up.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that sounds really cool if executed properly.
Star
But
Wars Galaxy revamp, please. When?
Yeah,
who
no kidding.
knows?
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am incredibly excited about Ashes of Creation because I'm excited about any MMO that's coming out, and just because I love this genre and it's a lot of what I play, and I love new things. But as much as I want it, as much as I would like to believe that New World is going to be a game that is something that I'm looking forward to, I think that New World reeks of Amazon. I think it feels like they have all the money in the world and no heart. The game feels soulless. The game feels empty. It doesn't look very deep. It doesn't look creative. It doesn't inspire me to want to play it. It definitely doesn't make me want to purchase it. And I think that there's a lot of potential there, assuming that they can get someone in the lead of it that actually cares about games and isn't just someone who's a talking head who can take the Amazon money and put it in the right place at the right time, but actually shows me that they love it and that they care about it. I want to see a little bit more of the soul that I see in Blizzard games, the soul that I saw even in Final Fantasy XIV, like the thought and the care they put into dungeons and the raids and the story that they tell and the artwork and how much they love their communities. And now that I'm seeing in Guild Wars 2, and like I don't see any of that in New World, and it makes me sad. As much as I want to look forward to that one, I can't.
And that
So
takes a whole lot out of it too,
yeah,
man. Like even if the gameplay was stellar, but it was still missing that soul.
yeah,
That would take me out of it, man. I play a lot of like widely regarded bad games just because to me, like I enjoy that story or that universe. Like I played Elder Scrolls Online just because I wanted to play more Elder Scrolls stuff. Like that has a big deal. That's a big deal for me. Like story is very important, and if it lacks that, it's probably not something I'm too interested in.
absolutely. So this one might be kind of a head scratcher here, but I'm gonna send this one to you first, Joker. What is your best memory
Okay.
playing an MMO game?
I remember, as grindy and silly as this might sound, I remember going around with my buddy in Mr. Pandaria
Mm-hmm.
after I just hit 90, I believe, which was the cap at the time, and we we were going around to all the rare spawns, and we were just killing all me and my buddy Cameron. We were just killing all the rare spawns, and it was like it's a really simple thing, but we were just like having a good time talking on like what Skype at the same or something like
Yeah.
just talking, running around, killing these spawns, do some PvP like that. It just it's not even necessarily like the game that gave me that like good memory. It was just like that game at the right time at a point in life where it just felt like nothing mattered but playing my video games.
Yeah,
Like it was
absolutely.
just like it has a special place in my heart. How about you? Or
Um,
Grynth?
yeah, go ahead and send it to Grynth first. What do you got? Favorite MMO
I
memory?
mean, I don't know. Like I went over the ones like, or what did it? Did I really have one from Guild Wars that I can even remember? I thought I had one that I talked about there. I don't know. The Star Wars one, obviously, I ranted about that one for a while.
Yeah.
It was pretty. It was
Yeah,
pretty
that's
That's
cool.
that's a cool memory.
But because it's like in WoW, I have like sort of like flashbacks and stuff. But I mean, I didn't really have anybody to play with when I was first like getting into it. It's basically just me and my brother would play, and there was nothing crazy. I guess there was fourth boss of Ice Crown Citadel. I think what was it like 10,000 DPS was probably pretty dang average back then, or
Yeah,
it was either 1,000 or 10,000. I don't. The zeros are blurring together at this point. But I remember breaking that threshold for the first time on my um like on my I was playing a balanced druid back then. So I mean, I remember that as well because like it was, I guess, just getting into like actual content and stuff. Um, so I guess that that one's pretty good. But the
Just like
Star Wars
finally
one,
hitting
definitely,
that.
because I could tell that story like
Yeah.
just unintentionally playing on the same server as the PvP player.
Yeah, no
It's pretty
kidding.
nuts.
Yeah, like the top performer in PvP. I've actually got like a couple of really good memories. I mean, one that I shared already was like really my first intro into World of Warcraft, creating my first character, like having my dad be there, like watching me do it, all that stuff. I mean, that was an absolutely incredible experience. And then like the next one actually happened, gosh, probably about 4 or 5 years ago ish. I'm trying to think. Has it really been that long? Gosh. So for those of you who don't know, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I met Grynth playing Smite on Xbox, and we were both looking to play it like competitively in some aspect, and that was where we got our start, like in streaming and playing together, was playing a third-person shooter MMO on Xbox. And we met him and like my top sub gifter, Oil Prince Taylor TJ, who's like another awesome guy. He was also like on our team, and like we were the core three of us, and like we went and we did that, and we ran our circuits, and we played in a couple of like tournaments and stuff like that, and like it was kind of fun like doing that. And like we all got really close, and then like a couple of years like had passed from that, and like we kind of like fell out of touch a little bit. And then like I actually caught I saw him, like Grynth live. I mean, he's Jacob to me, but Grynth live online, playing World of Warcraft. And I was like, dude, you play World of Warcraft? And like we hadn't talked in months at that point, you know? And I mean, this was a few years ago now, and we legit hadn't talked in months. Like I had not heard from him. I was not expecting to hear from him again, and it was like a complete shock to me to see him online. I didn't even know he played WoW. And then like I was like, dude, we got to play together sometime or something like that. And then like ever from like that point on, like it's just like I to this day consider him to be one of my like closest friends. I mean, he's someone that we hang out and we talk to and have a good time with each other all the time. I mean, we talk about like life stuff, we talk about game stuff, movies, TV shows, all of it. Like he has been like basically adopted into my circle of close friends. I mean, he knows like my best friend in real life, the Mad Hatter, David. I mean, he's family to me. And like moments like that, you know, like there's been a few moments like that, but like that is one of my favorite moments in World of Warcraft, because it was something that like almost introduced me to someone new, in that it was someone that I already knew, but like in a new way, and also like reunited me with someone who ended up being one of my closest friends to this day. And like
awesome.
you can't make that kind of stuff up, man. You know.
I was touching. I like that story, Vince. I like that one.
Yeah. So
I totally relate. I feel like I've definitely met a lot of online friends from World of Warcraft that I like still talk to today, and I even solidified a lot of bonds with people I already knew of playing World of Warcraft. Like that was my go-to game for very long time. So it's
yeah,
hard to really pinpoint a single memory. Like corny as that sounds, like there's
there's
just
so
so
many.
many
Yeah.
good things that happen while playing that game. Like it's kind of I don't have that same feeling too much anymore. Like all of the people I used to play with and stuff are kind of gone now, but like I'll always remember it. I'll always have fun with it. There's a reason I come back to it like at least once a year.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. So what is an MMORPG that you wish performed better? Is our last question on the list.
I mean, obviously, like Star Wars Galaxies probably didn't like it probably didn't perform that well, or else it
Yeah.
would still be here today. So I would like to. I'm not 100% sure on the specifics of why it got. I think what we cracked it down to WoW kind of just killing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Okay, like
an incredibly buggy launch, you know, like in a genre that doesn't have traditionally the most forgiving of players, and then on top of that, WoW releasing the year after, you know, like
okay,
so
yeah,
that's a lot.
I would say that game then. Like I love the way that when we looked into it, all those little facts we found. I think it sounds super interesting, and I love Star Wars, but like Knights of the Old Republic just kind of ain't it for me. So that
It
sounds like a
really,
interesting
it
new
really
angle.
ain't. It
Yeah.
absolutely is not. What about you? Do you have any MMORPGs you wish performed better, Grynth? Anything that really stands out that you would like to see?
After doing our research, it's Galaxies. Like,
Yeah.
oh my lord,
It sounds so sick.
there's so much. Like, that's what I wish. Like, or I don't know. It's if I wish there was a game that just kind of brought the other half out, I guess, or maybe I just need to play Animal
Yeah.
Crossing. I don't know. Um, but like that's what maybe WoW needs to try to bring. I mean, not that we just want WoW to monopolize everything, but
But we kind of do.
I mean, yeah, I don't know enough to do anything
Little
else.
bit.
But like if they could do something along those lines of like the player like almost player politics of like a server or whatever. That
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of not to that extent existed back in the day because you used to be trapped on a server, and
Yeah.
if you ruined your own reputation, that was it. You
Yeah.
weren't getting into a group for anything.
There was a
And that's
blacklist for
dead now.
people
That's
stealing
completely
items
sounds-
and all that
That
stuff.
sounds
Like,
cool
yeah.
to me though. Like that means
Yeah, it
people
was
are
good.
minding their P's and Q's and like
Or they
Yeah.
weren't.
I like
I mean,
that.
Because it was
yeah.
back with the old loot systems, it was a term called ninja looting, and so
Yeah.
you would set someone as a master looter, and they would be the only ones and grab, like they would get the gear or whatever. And normally, what
Leave.
you do is you click the body, you like shift click the body or whatever, and it pops up all the loot.
Yeah.
And then you do okay, everyone roll for this, whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody does that, and then you right click that item, and it lets you pick the player, whatever group they were in. But it's like we kill Ragnaros. What is it? Eye of Sulfuros? Is that the item?
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
go in, and instead of rolling that off, they just go left click, and it goes straight into their bags, and they leave the group and hearth out.
Let's go.
Just like, oh my god!
Log out
And so there
immediately
were
so you can't get
ninja
angry
looters was a
messages
thing.
from people, you know, and just completely
Yeah.
log
Your
off.
conscience
Yeah.
is clear. How to sight out
Yeah.
of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so it's like that reputation stuff literally doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Everybody from all
And it
different
should.
servers, all that stuff. You never see the
I
same
mean,
person twice, really.
It can to a certain extent, but not in that sense. Like
Yeah.
the servers are so massive now that it's like
The way you get a
no one
reputation
cares.
now is by being
no
a
one,
content
no
creator.
one cares. But no one outside of my guild cares who Grynth is on Malgame.
Yep.
But
Yeah, exactly. Basically, if you're not like Asmongold or you know one of the top content creators for the game, nobody cares who you are in WoW. That's just the reality of like being a game that big with that many servers and that much that many players. So for me, looking at like an MMORPG that I wish performed better, I mean I would like to say Star Wars Galaxies, but at the same time, I would love to see a revamp of that with like modern graphics. So I mean, I wouldn't even say that Star Wars Galaxies is the one I want to see perform better right now. The one I would want to see like do better than it's doing currently is Star Citizen, and that's not something that we
Oh.
mentioned, but it refuses to come out because they've been working on the game forever. And if it ever releases, I do believe it will be incredible if they realize the vision that they sold people for millions of dollars without actually having real proof of concept. But assuming that they can actually ever get it to be what it's supposed to be, Star Citizen would be the game to pull me away from World of Warcraft, and that
I
is
own
probably
that
the only
game.
one. And how much of it, like, and how much of the idea that they pitched is currently realized in the game?
Not hardly any. But
My answer for the foreseeable future will be not enough.
dude, if they just dropped that game for like $10 and it was what it is right now, but you could do it with friends, it would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like it's not like terrible. The biggest problem I'd say it has is its performance. It's god awful.
Yeah.
Or like it just utilizes all the wrong parts of your computer. Like you play that game and I can run it completely fine, but my RAM like goes through the roof for some reason. Like it's absurd. It utilizes weird things. Like you cannot play that game if you have 16 gigs of RAM.
It's out here outsourcing like responsibilities to your keyboard software while you're playing.
Yeah, dude, it's strange.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean that's why that is my game that I wish would perform better. I wish the developers were a lot closer to realizing their vision, and I wish that they had set more realistic expectations for what they'd be able to accomplish. Because I strongly agree, I don't think it's right for them to charge as much as they're charging right now with how much they have available. They still haven't made the campaign available, I believe, and I'm hoping that at any point in my lifetime I will see that game come out. Because right now I don't think I will, and that kind of bums me out.
And they have microtransactions with their ships. Their little if you want, I guess like you could buy a ship in game, but for one, I'm fairly certain they do like server wipes pretty frequently, and you just lose your ship. So like
Yeah.
anything you bought with your currency, it's just gone. So like if
That's
you want
awful.
a permanent ship that is always with you, even after the servers wipe or reset or whatever, like
Yeah.
you have to buy it. And there's some absurdly expensive ships. Like I think the highest price ship they have is over like $500 or something. Like, and there's probably at least like more people than you can count on your fingers that have probably bought that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, gentlemen, this has been and probably will forever be the longest episode of this podcast. And it has been an absolute pleasure doing it with you. We
good time.
are still going to be doing a little bit of Smash Bros afterwards. I can't say for how long because this has been, again, a really long episode of this, but I said we were going to do Smash Bros as a post show, and I'm sticking to that. So
Me too.
feel free to stick around for that. Grynth, I don't know, are you going to hang out for that? I know it's pretty okay. Cool. You'll chill for a bit. Okay, awesome.
For the sake of the YouTube video, can we do a little outro right now?
Yeah. We're
regardless?
absolutely
Okay.
we're gonna do an outro at the end. 24-hour podcast. When Wyvern, you're insane. Literally never. I cannot talk that long.
We
I
can talk
will
about
die.
WoW for
No.
24
I
To
will
hours.
be
die.
fair, we could have talked about MMOs for.
Probably.
Way
Imagine
longer.
we
Probably.
went in depth as we can about WoW, about all of them, which we just,
Yeah.
I mean, don't have that experience. So
Yeah. I mean, we could have talked about this for personally. I could have talked about this for another 6 hours easily. Like just because of how much is just rattling around in my brain about MMO content and like my opinions and all that stuff. But we are going to be playing Smash in the lobby after this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do an outro real quick. We're going to take a quick, like probably like 2 to 5 minute break, depending on like how long it takes me to get water and all that stuff. If Joker needs to go to the bathroom for the 4th time, whatever it is that's going on.
It was one
His
time.
tiny bladder.
I
And-
didn't wash my hands. Whoever that was earlier, I was listening. I didn't wash them.
Yes. Vindication.
I sat down.
So-
I sat down when I peed, so I
Earlier.
didn't touch anything.
Earlier when
We
you
got a lot of
left.
women in the house. I don't want to pee on the seat. It's
Earlier when you left, they said, "Joker, wash your hands." And
was
I
listening.
said,
I had my headset off.
Look, Joker never washes his hands. That's a myth. And you
It's
didn't
true.
actually wash your hands. And I could not be happier.
I never wash my hands because I sit when I pee. I don't need to. I'm not touching anything. I pull my pants down.
Okay. All right. So just for anybody who doesn't already know where to find you, Joker, where can they find more of you and your content with your dirty hands?
My hands are not dirty, but if you want to find me, you can find me at twitch.tv/theordinaryjoker, which is the handle right below me. Also at Twitter ordinary_joker with 2 R's.
Excellent. That's awesome. And Grynth, what about you? For anyone who doesn't already know you and your content, where can they find you?
Grynth Live on Twitch and Twitter, and I pretty much don't use anything else. So
Spell that out for me, just for anyone who's not already watching.
GRYNTHLIVE.
There you go. And there you have it. And for anyone who doesn't already know where you can find me, for our live viewers who are our favorite viewers, as always, you can catch me here at my channel, twitch.tv/justvince. You can catch me on Twitter at my Twitter handle at Vince0094. Also, for anybody who's here watching live and wants to follow any of the Gaming Tonic like podcasts, like Twitter or our Twitters, they're there linked. I think Joker's going to be like plugging the Discord and all that stuff. We do have a Discord link there for anyone who hasn't joined already. And we will be live next week at our normal time of 3 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. For anyone who wants to come to that, we will not be having a guest next week. Next week, it'll just be me and Joker. Our topic is still to be decided. For anybody who wants to join us for Super Smash Bros. Lobbies and our post show, feel free to hang out for a little bit and come and hang out for the show on Saturdays or Sundays, as the case may be, too. So, thank you guys so much. Gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. Grynth, you were a fantastic guest. Hopefully, we will have you on the show again. And I hope you have a great week. And everybody will be live with Smash in just a little bit. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.